Chapter 1920. Due to the birth of Wu Huang, Pingyang Town was viewed by the entire cultivation world as the origin and sacred ground of Wu Dao. For the past 1,000 years, countless cultivators who cultivated Wu Dao walked out of the town. Some of them even established their own sects in Tianhuang mainland and grew into mighty figures. However, no matter what realm those people cultivated to, they would return to being ordinary when they returned to Pingyang Town. In Pingyang Town there was a place that no one could trespass. That was the place where Wu Huang cultivated in the past. It was an inconspicuous house. In the middle of the house, there was a peach blossom tree with lush leaves. The peach blossoms shone brightly and enveloped the house in a peaceful manner. Even though Wu Huang had ascended for 1,000 years, no one came to break the peace and tranquility of this place. No one knew that someone had been living in this house for the past 1,000 years. Under the peach tree, a man sat cross-legged. He wore a long purple robe, and his expression was calm. His features were delicate and pretty, but his entire body exuded a unique temperament. It was as if he had transcended the world, but also as if he was in the mortal world. The man's gaze was clear as he looked at his palm. 4 thumb-sized flames shone in his white palm. Martial spirit fire, red lotus karmic fire, tribulation fire, dragon phoenix flames. The 4 flames were like 4 spirits that danced in his palm and circled his fingertips in an extremely agile manner. Behind the man, 5 mysterious purple halos appeared, making him look like a god that couldn't be looked at directly. Wu Dao's true body. After 1,000 years, Wu Dao's true body fused with the bloodline of the dragon phoenix physique and broke through once more. He was already at level 5 of the Fate Wheel realm. Back then, many mystic essence witches descended to the lower world. According to the judgment of Wu Dao's true body, the combat strength of a level 5 Fate Wheel was definitely not weaker than any mystic witch, and was definitely at the peak of the mystic essence realm. Suddenly, a crack appeared in the space beside him. Wu Dao's true body knew who it was without even looking. "You're back," Wu Dao's true body said softly. A boy in white robes with long hair walked out of the crack in space and bowed to Wu Dao's true body. "Young master." The boy's face was tender, and his eyes were black and bright. Time did not leave any traces on his body. It was Momo. Momo had once gained sentience from Dai Yu and Su Zimo's inheritance. She was extremely talented and had long reached the Mahayana realm. She could ascend at any moment. However, all these years, he was unwilling to leave and had been guarding the martial Dao body. "How is she?" The martial Dao body retracted the flame in his palm and asked. When he spoke up to hear, Tao Yao hesitated for a moment and said, "However, her lifespan shows no signs of increasing at all. I wonder why?" Wu Dao's true body frowned. The main reason why he stayed on Tianhuang mainland and did not ascend was because he was worried about some old friends here. One of them was Yao Shui. There was a past between the two of them. However, they were not fated and did not end up together. Even though the past was not unforgettable, Su Zimo still remembered it in his heart. All these years, Yao Shui's cultivation realm remained at the void reversion realm. Wu Dao's true body once traveled all over Tianhuang mainland and even searched for space nodes. He broke through the barrier of Tianhuang mainland and headed to other small worlds to search for elixirs that could increase one's lifespan. He handed all the elixirs to Momo and asked her to bring them to Yao Shui. He did not choose to appear because he hoped that Yao Shui could cut off the past and start a new life. As the Empress of the Great Zhou Empire, Yao Shui had a noble status and an extraordinary status. She was also devastatingly beautiful and had many suitors. Wu Dao's true body originally planned to leave on Yao Shui's wedding. However, Yao Shui had always been alone for 1,000 years. Momo had visited Yao Shui many times and sent her elixirs. She even imparted the Dao to Yao Shui and cleared her doubts. However, Yao Shui's cultivation realm did not show any signs of loosening after all these years. Even Wu Dao's true body could not understand this. The lifespan of a void reversion was more than 5,000 years. Yao Shui had cultivated for more than 2,000 years now. Yao Shui had a heaven spirit root. Although her talent was not considered peerless, it was far superior to ordinary people. Furthermore, She had a top expert like Momo imparting the Tao to her. Her cultivation realm should not have no progress at all. Young master, I can sense that Sister Yao Shui has never forgotten you all these years. Momo said, every time I visit her, it's when she's the happiest. She would even ask me many things about you. Young master, why don't you go and visit her? Momo mustered her courage and asked. Wu Dao's true body remained silent for a long time. He sighed softly and shook his head. One day he would leave. If that was the case, he might as well not meet her. Wu Dao's true body closed his eyes for a long time and temporarily forgot about this matter. He slapped his storage bag and suddenly took out a drop of scarlet blood. An extremely terrifying power was nurtured within, and it even emitted a powerful life fluctuation. There was a heavenly wolf with a spirit consciousness in that drop of blood. All these years, Wu Dao's true body spent most of his time cultivating and did not pay attention to the heavenly wolf. He had almost forgotten about its existence. It was only when he re-established his connection with Qinglian's true body that he recalled that there was such a drop of blood from the upper world in his storage bag. What are you doing? The heavenly wolf suddenly became nervous when it caught sight of Wu Dao's true body. Naturally, it could sense that this person's aura had become even more frightening and powerful after 1,000 years. Back then, this person summoned 3 balls of flames and tortured it so much that it wished for death. It was still unforgettable. Tell me about the origin of the hell suppression cauldron. Wu Dao's true body stared at the blood in his palm and asked slowly. I really can't remember. The heavenly wolf replied. All right, I'll help you. Wu Dao's true body's expression was unchanged as 4 balls of flames appeared in his palm. The 4 balls of flames intertwined to form a prison that trapped the heavenly wolf within. It burned furiously and released an extremely terrifying power of flames that seemed like it could incinerate everything. Even the space in the palm of Wu Dao's true body was burned with a gigantic hole. Wu Dao's true body's palm was already placed in the void. However, the void turbulence could not extinguish the 4 balls of flames. The 3 balls of flames almost took the heavenly wolf's life. Instantly, the heavenly wolf let out a tragic cry as the 4 balls of flames burned. Sizzle! Under the roasting of the flames, the drop of blood let out a strange sound and emitted green smoke. The life aura in the blood was weakening rapidly. At this rate, the drop of blood would be incinerated into nothingness by the 4 balls of flames in less than an hour. I'll talk, the heavenly wolf wailed repeatedly. The flames of Wu Dao's true body retracted slightly, but did not dissipate. The heavenly wolf said hurriedly, back then, a peerless expert was born in the Buddhist monasteries. In order to suppress many evil spirits, he refined his own flesh and blood into a purgatory. In order to suppress this purgatory, this expert created an unprecedented peerless weapon. Within the body of the cauldron, there was a forbidden secret manual of the Buddhist monasteries, the Wisdom Nirvana Sutra. The 4 walls of the cauldron were fused with the souls of the 4 sacred beasts, causing the power of the hell suppression cauldron to increase greatly. That person's Tao title was Avicii, and he was known as the Emperor Avicii. Bookmark for easier reading. Chapter 1921. Emperor Avicii, Wu Dao muttered softly. Even with his temperament, he could not hide the shock in his eyes when he heard Sky Wolf's description. Using his own flesh and blood to refine a purgatory to suppress evil. What kind of method was this? Not to mention imprisoning the souls of the 4 sacred beasts to forge a peerless divine weapon. Even if Wu Dao's original body did not know much about the upper realm, he could roughly guess that the 4 sacred beasts, azure dragon, vermilion bird, white tiger, and black tortoise, were definitely the peak existences in the upper realm. However, such powerful sacred beasts were still suppressed by the Emperor Avicii, their souls imprisoned and sealed in the prison-suppressing cauldron. His powerful methods were evident. Even so, the prison-suppressing cauldron still shattered. Is the Emperor Avicii still alive? Wu Dao's original body asked. In fact, when he asked this question, Wu Dao's original body already had an answer in his heart. If the Emperor Avicii was still alive, the prison-suppressing cauldron would not have been shattered and left in the lower realm, buried in ruins. He died a long time ago, Sky Wolf said. The Emperor of Vichy once created an era, but who knows how many years have passed since that era? Perhaps hundreds of millions of years, or billions of years. It's too long. Even a great emperor can't live forever. He can't last that long. An era? Wu Dao's original body frowned slightly. Sky Wolf explained. If a great emperor is born in the upper realm, he will create his own era. When a great emperor falls, it also means the end of the era. You mean in an era, there is only one great emperor? Wu Dao's original body asked. Of course, Sky Wolf said. In the many realms of the upper realm, there are many great emperors, but in every era, there is only one great emperor. The great emperor rules the world, gathers destiny, rules the myriad realms, and respects everyone in the universe. Who dares to disobey? There was only one great emperor. Upper realm, divine cloud continent. When Su Zimo received this information, many of the doubts in his heart were gradually solved. No wonder the bronze square cauldron was so powerful and indestructible. Although it was broken, even the black hole in the universe could not swallow it. The bronze square cauldron was originally an imperial weapon. Of course, after being shattered to such a state, the imperial armament's cultivation had already dropped, and its might had been greatly reduced. In order to restore the hell-suppressing cauldron to its peak and unleash the true power of the monarch weapon, Su Zimo's cultivation could not be too low. Normally speaking, as a peerless monarch weapon, the prison-suppressing cauldron was extremely famous and easy to recognize. However, due to the passage of time and the fact that the cauldron was broken beyond recognition, no one had been able to identify the origin of the cauldron. In Su Zimo's opinion, even if he completely repaired the hell-suppressing cauldron, not many people would be able to recognize it. Su Zimo calmed himself down and continued to cultivate in the mine. He had already broken through to the 9th level of the mystic origin stage. In this mine, there was an abundance of elemental spirit stones. If there were no accidents, he planned to cultivate until he reached the peak of Tier 9 Arcane Aeon. If he had the chance, he would even try to break through to earthly origin stage and become an earth god. 1 year later, outside Glazed Light City, in a mine under the 7th elemental spirit mine, Su Zimo suddenly woke up from his cultivation. His eyes flickered, and he had a strange expression on his face. Earlier on, he felt an unusual throbbing in his heart on a whim. For the past 1,000 years, the mine had been extremely peaceful, and no one had dared to disturb him. The cultivators in the mine were all mystic immortals, and could not pose a threat to him. However, the throbbing feeling was extremely obvious, and could not be an illusion. Could someone have noticed that I've been cultivating in secret? The thought flashed through Su Zimo's mind before he denied it. All these years, he had been extremely careful, and did not expose himself. Even the cultivators in the mine did not know what he was doing in the depths of the mine. Could it be? Su Zimo suddenly thought of a guess. Oh no, run. Someone dug out a complete claw. Everyone around is dead. Suddenly, a series of terrified screams could be heard from outside the mine. Su Zimo's expression was grim. Back then, before he entered the mine, a noseless cultivator had told him about this. Someone had dug out a single drop of blood, and it caused tens of thousands of cultivators to die in this mine. If a complete claw was dug out, the consequences would be unimaginable. Heavens! That's not a claw. Suddenly, a trembling voice sounded. That's a complete living being. It's alive. Ah! The scream stopped abruptly. Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat. To think that a living being would be dug out from the elemental spirit mine. The noseless cultivator had once told him that some of the corpses might not rot after hundreds of thousands of years. One could imagine the terrifying power contained within those corpses. However, after an unknown number of years, an ancient living being had awakened in the elemental spirit mine. Suddenly, Su Zimo recalled something and glanced over instinctively. He stared at a stone wall not far away in silence. More than 100 years ago, he had dug to that stone wall. Just as he was about to swing his jade shovel down, his spirit perception warned him of extreme danger for no reason. He did not act rashly. Instead, he channeled his nether fluorescent and illumination eyes. His left eye was pitch black while his right eye was white as he looked at the stone wall. Normally speaking, The surface of the rocks in the mine would have a unique layer of stone. Even one's spirit consciousness could not penetrate it, let alone one's vision. However, in the past few years, Su Zimo had inadvertently discovered that if he channeled his illumination and nether fluorescent eyes at the same time, he could vaguely see through the layer of stone and see some blurry scenes within. This discovery made him overjoyed. With that, he could easily determine where there were elemental spirit ores in the mine and harvest them directly, saving him a lot of time. At that time, he had used his illumination and nether fluorescent eyes to look at the stone wall. Through the layer of stone, he could vaguely make out a blurry white shadow that was 10 feet in size and was different from elemental spirit ores. Out of caution, Su Zimo did not continue digging at the stone wall. Instead, he changed his direction and continued to harvest elemental spirit ores to cultivate. But now that a calamity had broken out in the mine, Su Zimo could not help but recall this matter. The blood-curdling screams outside gradually died down, and soon, it became silent. With his sharp senses, Su Zimo could already smell the thick stench of blood. He did not dare to act rashly. Instead, he retracted his aura and held his breath, lowering his heartbeat to the minimum. Even the flow of his bloodline became incomparably slow. He hid in the depths of the mine, motionless, like a lifeless rock. Su Zimo waited patiently. Time passed bit by bit. An hour passed. Su Zimo judged that the ancient living being should have left long ago. Out of caution, he remained motionless and continued to wait. 2 hours later, there was no movement for a long time. Su Zimo finally heaved a long sigh of relief, and his expression relaxed. Chapter 1922. Now that such a huge disaster had occurred in this mine, experts of Glazed Light City would definitely be attracted. This was not a place to stay for long. After confirming that there were no abnormalities outside, Su Zimo left. When he passed by the strange stone wall, he paused for a moment. However, he did not act rashly and continued heading towards the entrance of the cave. Before long, the entrance of the mine deep underground appeared. Su Zimo stood at the entrance of the cave and looked around. The scene outside was extremely terrifying. Dozens of corpses were strewn all over the ground with fresh blood flowing everywhere. Some of the cultivators were missing half their bodies. Some of them had their chests pierced by some gigantic weapon and were almost split into two. Some of the cultivators were completely rotten, and their faces were unrecognizable. They died tragically. Su Zimo's gaze shifted and landed on a head not far away. The head was filled with rotten flesh and did not have a nose. It was the noseless cultivator who entered the mine with Su Zimo back then. That person's head was separated from his body, and his eyes were widened in fear. It could be said that he was unlucky to have experienced 2 such calamities in the spirit mine. Although he managed to survive the previous time, he was not spared this time round. Su Zimo sighed gently and prepared to leave this place. Just as he was about to step out of the cave, his expression changed, and he retreated hurriedly, looking down. Su Zimo's pupils constricted, and he was shocked. A tiny wound appeared on his calf. It was almost imperceptible, but it almost severed his calf. Blood seeped out of the wound slowly. It was only at this moment that Su Zimo felt an intense pain. Although this wound was small, it was extremely deep. It had even broken the bones in his leg. Su Zimo's expression was grim. He still could not tell what sort of weapon could cause such a tiny wound. Even the sharpest sword that was as thin as a cicada's wing would not leave such a wound. It was more like a mark left behind by a silk thread. Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat as he suddenly looked at the entrance of the cave ahead and narrowed his eyes. At the bottom of the cave, there was a string of blood beads hanging strangely in the air. This position was exactly where Su Zimo had lifted his foot. Su Zimo activated candlelight illumination and ghastly fluorescent eye, manifesting a pair of black and white pupils as he focused his gaze. Hiss! Su Zimo couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. Right in front of the cave entrance, a dozen or so completely transparent fine threads appeared, almost sealing off the entire cave entrance. The string of blood beads hanging in the air was hanging on one of the threads. It was this fine and transparent thread that had almost cut his calf in half. What is this? Su Zimo frowned, his expression uncertain. After all, Qinglian's true body had been cultivated until now, and even a natural dark rank magic treasure was unable to harm it in the slightest. However, the dozen or so fine threads in front of him had almost severed his calf. These silk threads were sharper than any divine weapon. Furthermore, Su Zimo hadn't used any strength at all, and was merely walking forward normally. However, his calf was almost severed when he accidentally bumped into the thread. When the thread cut into his flesh, he didn't even feel any pain right away. It was clear how sharp the threads were. Su Zimo's expression was terrible, and he felt a sense of lingering fear. If not for his sharp spirit perception that sensed something amiss and retreated in time, he would have been a pile of corpses sliced by the threads right now. Could these threads have been left behind by the ancient living being that was dug out? Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat as he vaguely thought of something. However, right then, he suddenly felt an itchy sensation from the wound on his calf that made him want to scratch it. Su Zimo hurriedly stopped that thought and looked down. The wound on his calf had already turned purplish-black. The wound had started to fester, and his calf was gradually swelling. There was poison on the transparent threads. Su Zimo was shocked. The Qinglian bloodline repelled evil, and was immune to all poisons. But now, even the bloodline of the Qinglian's true body could not stop the spread of the poison. The purplish-black wound was spreading slowly, and Su Zimo's calf was gradually losing feeling from the initial itch. Su Zimo hurriedly released the innate divine power of the Six Fangs' divine power, and his essence spirit and bloodline power surged. Even so, the Qinglian bloodline could not suppress the poison at the wound. Su Zimo's essence spirit had long reached the earth essence realm, and forcefully broke through the seal on his consciousness. Wiping away the seal on his storage bag, he took out a bunch of elixirs and swallowed them. The elixirs entered his stomach, and turned into a rich medicinal effect that surged towards his wound. However, such a large amount of elixirs coupled with the pure and flawless Qinglian bloodline could only stop the spread of the poison slightly. Right then, a warning flashed through Su Zimo's mind as he raised his head instinctively. Outside the cave, a blood shadow was sprinting over at a shocking speed. Under illumination and nether fluorescent eye, Su Zimo could see everything clearly. The crimson shadow was a gigantic crimson spider. Its 8 legs were as sharp as spears, and the tips of its feet were light as it stepped on the threads. It was extremely agile and soundless. The scarlet blood spider had a menacing expression, and its scarlet eyes revealed a ferocious gaze. It glared at Su Zimo, who was at the entrance of the cave, as though it was looking at an interesting delicacy. Su Zimo had already guessed that possibility earlier on. The only way to leave such threads at the entrance of the cave was for a living being of the spider race. The aura of the scarlet blood spider was extremely terrifying, and Su Zimo could not even sense the cultivation of the spider. However, he realized that the scarlet blood spider was the ancient living being that had just awakened from the essence spirit mine. The moment he touched the spider silk at the entrance of the cave, the scarlet blood spider could sense him even from 1,000 kilometers away. The spider silk was sharp and poisonous. However, the gigantic body of the scarlet blood spider could walk on the spider silk as though it was on flat ground. It was shockingly fast. The spider silk trembled slightly, and the scarlet blood spider arrived at the entrance of the cave. The moment he saw the scarlet blood spider, Su Zimo broke out in cold sweat. That beast did not know what pity was. The moment it woke up, it started a massacre. There was naturally no way it would let Su Zimo off. Su Zimo supported his numb calf, and could not run at all. Swoosh! A pair of gigantic golden wings condensed behind him, and broke through the surrounding stone walls. Sand and gravel flew everywhere as the cave shook and showed signs of collapsing. Su Zimo made use of his extreme speed divine powers to try and escape. However, the abdomen of the scarlet blood spider in front of him squirmed and spat out thin, invisible spider silk. It looked abnormally weak as it floated in midair, blocking Su Zimo's escape route completely. The wings of the rock dissipated instantly upon contact with the spider silk. There was no way they could defend against it. Chapter 1923. Su Zimo was in grave danger the moment he met the crimson blood spider. His life was hanging by a thread, The difference in strength between them was too great. All his trump cards were useless against the crimson blood spider. Although the souls of the two sacred beasts had awakened in the prison-suppressing cauldron. However, the power of the two sacred beasts' souls had been exhausted in the previous battle. Unless there were enough spiritual dharma treasures for the prison-suppressing cauldron to devour and refine, the power of the two sacred beasts' souls could be restored. Now Su Zimo had nothing to rely on to defend against the power of this ancient creature. Even if the crimson blood spider stopped attacking, the poison on the spider silk would kill Qinglian's real body before long. Hiss! Hiss! The crimson blood spider was excited, and its eyes were ferocious. It let out an ear-piercing sound, and moved its 8 legs, pouncing towards Su Zimo. The path ahead was blocked by the spider silk, and there was no way he could break through. There were too many spider silk, and it was everywhere. Even with the true dragon's 9 flashes, Su Zimo did not dare to release it rashly. He was afraid that he would land on the poisonous and incomparably sharp spider web after dodging. Helpless, Su Zimo could only retreat along the tunnel. However, he had lost his Dapeng wings. Even if he released earth-traversing golden light and heaven's feet, his speed was far from the crimson blood spiders. Before long, the scarlet blood spider had already caught up to Su Zimo. It extended a pair of spear-like forelegs and stabbed towards Su Zimo. There were also sharp barbs on its front legs that emitted a foul stench, and were extremely poisonous. Even if he was scratched by the spider's legs, he could die on the spot, let alone be stabbed by them. The poison on Su Zimo's calf had already spread. He could no longer feel one of his thighs and his movement techniques were slow. Seeing that the crimson blood spider was pouncing over, and he could not dodge, Su Zimo summoned the prison-suppressing cauldron. His body flashed and he curled up hiding in the cauldron. Clang! A pair of spider legs pierced through the air and collided with the cauldron of hell. The sound of metal clashing could be heard and sparks flew everywhere. Although Su Zimo was hiding inside the prison-suppressing cauldron, he could still feel a terrifying force that knocked the prison-suppressing cauldron away. Boom! 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 The prison-suppressing cauldron continued to retreat as it smashed through the stone walls of the mine. The crimson blood spider charged forward and chased after him. Suddenly, Su Zimo felt a bone-chilling coldness descend upon him. The prison-suppressing cauldron also stopped moving. It floated in midair motionless. To be more precise, the prison-suppressing cauldron was frozen in midair. A layer of frost instantly covered the surface of the cauldron. Curled up inside the cauldron, Su Zimo couldn't help but shudder. No matter how hard he tried, he couldn't circulate his bloodline. Traces of frost also appeared in his bloodline. A figure flashed past the prison-suppressing cauldron. Su Zimo raised his head instinctively. A palm-sized butterfly hovered in midair. It was snow-white and emitted a chilling aura. When it saw the snow-white butterfly, the crimson blood spider paused in its tracks as well. The snow-white butterfly's figure was far inferior to the crimson blood spider, and it even looked frail. However, at that moment, the snow-white butterfly's aura was not disadvantaged at all. Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat as he recalled something. Previously, he had discovered a blurry white shadow on the stone walls nearby. It was a little strange. Out of caution, he did not dig into the stone wall. But now, because of the pursuit of the crimson blood spider, the prison-suppressing cauldron accidentally smashed the stone wall and revealed the blurry white shadow. It was the snow-white butterfly before him. There was an ancient living being buried in the stone wall as well. Furthermore, the ancient living being was not dead. As though it recognized the background of the snow-white butterfly, the crimson blood spider's eyes were wary. It was no longer as arrogant and fearless as it was just now, pacing around on the spot to probe. The snow-white butterfly glared at the crimson blood spider and suddenly flapped its wings. Crack! 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 A terrifying cold current surged, and the crimson blood spider's body was instantly covered in a layer of frost. In fact, ice crystals even formed on its body. The crimson blood spider was shocked. Boom! The crimson blood spider channeled its blood chi, and a loud sound echoed from its body. Instantly, it broke free from the frost on its body and shook off the ice on the ground. Glaring at the snow-white butterfly, the crimson blood spider danced with its 8 legs and fled in the direction it came from. In the blink of an eye, it disappeared into the mine. Su Zimo was secretly shocked. To think that this seemingly weak snow-white butterfly was even scarier, and could even repel the crimson blood spider. Although the snow-white butterfly had not targeted Su Zimo the entire time after it appeared. However, the temperature of the entire mine had dropped to an extreme. Even the bronze square cauldron could not block out that chill. Su Zimo was shivering from the cold and his teeth chattered. All of a sudden, on the other side, there was a commotion as robes fluttered. It seemed as though many cultivators had already arrived underground and were rushing towards this place. The crimson blood spider fled in that direction. Chase after it. That crimson blood spider is terrifyingly strong. It has just awakened, and its combat strength has yet to recover to its peak. However, it has already killed more than 100,000 people. I'm afraid we're not a match for it. It's fine. Just hold it back, and try your best to keep it here. The county governor is rushing over personally with his men. The county governor is alarmed? The county governor is a perfected immortal expert. With him around, we'll definitely be able to suppress that beast. Su Zimo's hearing was strong, and he could hear everything clearly from afar. Initially, it was not common for something to happen in the spirit mine. Even if there were any corpses, the earth immortals and heavenly immortals of the major cities would be able to take care of it. However, they did not expect that there would be living beings in the spirit essence mine. Even heavenly immortals would not be able to suppress such living beings. At this moment, a man said in a deep voice, "There's an extremely strong life force coming from here as well. Come with me." The cultivators who were rushing over split into two groups. A portion of them had sensed the commotion and were rushing over. Su Zimo groaned in his heart. As a mystic immortal, he had no means of protecting himself in such a situation. He was like a fish in the waves, unable to resist at all. He wanted to escape from this place as soon as possible. However, the snow-white butterfly was right in front of him. He did not dare to act rashly. Not long after, several figures rushed out from several mines. There were about a few hundred of them. The person in the lead had a strong aura. He stood in the air, wearing iron armor and holding a long spear. As soon as he arrived, he stared at the snow-white butterfly not far away with a serious expression. Behind the man in iron armor, there were many guards from Glazed Light City. Although their cultivation realms were different, they were all earth immortals. The aura of the man in iron armor was obviously much stronger than most of the earth immortals. If he was not mistaken, he should be a heavenly immortal expert from Glazed Light City. Chapter 1924. Attack! The armored man pointed the spear in his hand at the snow-white butterfly and said coldly. The hundreds of earth immortal experts behind him spread out and rushed towards the snow-white butterfly. While they were still in midair, they released dazzling Dharma treasures. Swoosh! Primordial chi surged in the mine. Many earth immortals did not dare to be careless and immediately released their grand mystiques. Although he was facing a seemingly weak butterfly, the armored man did not have any intention of holding back. He activated his primordial spirit, and thousands of rays of light shot out from the spear. The entire mine rumbled and trembled, as if it would collapse in the next moment and bury all the living beings below. A terrifying grand mystique was released. Although Su Zimo did not recognize this grand mystique, he could tell that it was a peerless grand mystique from its power. This man was indeed a heaven immortal expert. In a battle of this level, even the aftershocks could severely injure or even kill him. However, there was no way for him to retreat. There was nowhere to run. Although the prison-suppressing cauldron could withstand a direct impact, it did not have a top after all. In a real chaotic battle, it could not protect him at all. Suddenly, the snow-white butterfly in midair flapped its wings. This pair of small wings fanned out two terrifying cold currents visible to the naked eye. It was a vast expanse of whiteness, and a thick fog was rising. Crack! Crack! The temperature in the entire mine plummeted. Before the Dharma treasures could descend, they were covered in a layer of frost and froze in midair. Even many grand mystiques and grand mystiques were frozen by the cold air. The only heaven immortal expert, the armored man, released his grand mystique, but it could not dissolve the power of the two cold currents. The thousands of rays of light were extinguished. Ice crystals condensed on the armored man's spear. They traveled along the spear and quickly spread to his palm, arm, and even his entire body. It was too fast. By the time the armored man reacted, his palm had already been frozen together with the pike. Retreat! The armored man's expression changed drastically as he roared. Unfortunately, it was all too late. The snow-white cold current struck over, and the several hundred earthly immortal realm experts in midair were all frozen. Their bodies were covered with frost and ice crystals, and they seemed to have been frozen into human-shaped ice sculptures. The expressions on the faces of these ice sculptures, the fear in their eyes, everything was frozen, as if they had been frozen in the past. Suzima was dumbfounded. Originally, he was worried that he would be swept into the battlefield and be affected by the battle. Unexpectedly, when the snow-white butterfly attacked, two cold currents burst forth. Not a single magic treasure could penetrate its body. Hundreds of human-shaped ice sculptures began to fall. The snow-white butterfly flapped its wings again. Bang! 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 These human-shaped ice sculptures exploded one after another. Right before Suzimo's eyes, the numerous earthly immortal experts shattered into snow-white ice butterflies that slowly floated down. Not a single drop of blood flowed out from this scene. Ice butterflies fluttered in the air, making for a rather poignant scene. These were a few hundred earthly immortal realm experts. Yet in the blink of an eye, all of them had actually perished, and their bodies and souls had been obliterated. Suzimo hid in the prison-suppressing cauldron, and could not help but shudder. In the mine, the only one who was still alive was the armored man at the heavenly origin realm. However, after being attacked twice by the snow-white butterfly, this heavenly immortal expert did not have it easy either. Layers of ice had also condensed on his spear and armor. The cold air was so dense that it almost completely froze him. Boom! The armored man circulated his blood and chi. With a low roar, his body shook violently, and he struggled free from the layer of ice. Countless ice shards were shattered and scattered in all directions. The armored man's face was pale as he coughed heavily a few times. The blood that he spat out was blood-colored ice shards that were the size of fingernails and emitted cold air. Swoosh! The armored man's face was filled with fear. Without hesitation, he turned and fled. He released an escape technique and sank into the ground, disappearing from sight. This group of people had come quickly and left even faster. Hundreds of earthly immortal experts had perished, while the only heavenly immortal had fled with heavy injuries. This snow-white butterfly had been sealed under the spirit elemental mine for an unknown number of years. It had just awakened today, and its combat strength had yet to recover to its peak. Otherwise, the armored man would not have been able to escape death. Given how terrifying this snow-white butterfly was, it was no wonder that the county governor of Azure Cloud County would rush here personally after discovering an ancient living being beneath the mine. The snow-white butterfly did not chase after the armored man. Instead, it turned around and faced Suzimo. Suzimo's heart skipped a beat. If the snow-white butterfly wanted to kill him, it did not even need to attack twice. A single flap of its wings would suffice. Although the snow-white butterfly flapped its wings, it did not release any killing moves. Instead, it arrived before Suzimo in the blink of an eye. The man and the butterfly were only inches apart as they stared at each other. After pausing for a moment, the snow-white butterfly circled Suzimo a few times as though it was sensing something. It did not attack Suzimo. Suzimo did not move at all, as he tried his best to compose himself and maintain his composure. I didn't mean to disturb you. It was a freak combination of factors that alarmed you, Senior. Suzimo forced a chuckle and explained. The snow-white butterfly did not say anything and ignored Suzimo. After circling a few times, it flew to the vicinity of Suzimo's injured calf. It was only at this moment that Suzimo recalled that his calf was poisoned by the spider silk. He lowered his head and could not help but be stunned. Before the battle just now, the poison on his calf had already spread to his entire thigh. But now, the poison had stopped in his thigh and did not continue to spread. Suzimo could sense how terrifying the poison was. However, Qinglian's true body could not defend against it at all. Now that the poison was being controlled, it was clearly caused by an external force. On second thought, he guessed the reason. Because of the snow-white butterfly's awakening, the temperature in the mine was extremely low. Qinglian's true body was also corroded by the frost qi, and her bloodline was almost frozen. Under such circumstances, the poison could not spread. The snow-white butterfly hovered around his calf and flapped its wings. Each time it flapped, a wave of frost qi would surge into Su Zimo's thigh. Under the influence of the poison, his thigh had already turned purplish-black. But now, the purplish-black color on his thigh was receding bit by bit. At the same time, purplish-black pus flowed out of the wound slowly, with a nauseating stench. When he saw that, Su Zimo was delighted. The frost qi was even stronger than the poison of the scarlet blood spider. The snow-white butterfly was actually dispelling the poison for him and healing him. Before long, the poisoned blood on his calf wound was completely drained. His entire thigh had regained feeling as well. Without the corrosion of the poison, Qinglian's true body's terrifying regeneration capabilities were reflected once more as the wound closed rapidly. Before long, he would recover to his original state. "Thank you, Senior," Su Zimo thanked hurriedly. If not for the snow-white butterfly's help in dispelling the poison, Qinglian's true body might have been crippled completely. Chapter 1925. After dispelling the poison on Su Zimo's leg, the snow-white butterfly circled around him a few more times, seemingly hesitant. The snow-white butterfly did not say anything. However, Su Zimo could sense its anxiety and worry. What was the butterfly worried about when it was so strong? Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat as he recalled some of the conversations he heard earlier on. The incident at the spirit mine this time round had even alarmed the county governor of Azure Cloud County to rush over personally. The county governor of Azure Cloud County was a perfected immortal expert. However, the snow-white butterfly had just awakened and had yet to recover its strength completely. As such, it should be worried about the county governor of Azure Cloud County. Naturally, Su Zimo hoped that the snow-white butterfly could stay by his side. With such an ancient living being as his companion, he could probably go anywhere in the entire Azure Cloud County, let alone Glazed Light City. However, Su Zimo knew very well that the snow-white butterfly would definitely become the target of public criticism now that it had awakened. The entire Azure Cloud County would be sent to hunt it down. At that time, even he might be destroyed by that power, let alone the fact that the snow-white butterfly would not be able to escape. Just as Su Zimo was pondering, the snow-white butterfly flapped its wings and flew into the distance, vanishing from the mine before long. When he truly saw the butterfly leave, Su Zimo felt a sense of disappointment. Dayu's true form was of the butterfly race. That was the reason why Su Zimo could not help but have a good impression of the snow-white butterfly when he saw it. Furthermore, he guessed that the reason why the snow-white butterfly was willing to heal him was probably because it sensed the aura of its race from him. "Go on. I hope you can escape this calamity." Su Zimo looked in the direction where the snow-white butterfly left and murmured softly, "I wonder if we'll be able to meet again in the future." After this battle, the mine was reduced to ruins with corpses strewn everywhere. Among the corpses, there were some shattered ice shards. Those ice shards were the corpses of the hundreds of Earth immortal experts just now. It had been some time since the snow-white butterfly left, and the temperature in the mine had returned to normal. However, those ice shards had yet to melt. Su Zimo could see through the ice and see some storage bags inside. The storage pouches of a few hundred earthly immortal realm experts was a huge fortune. However, Su Zimo pondered for a long time, weighing the pros and cons, and still didn't touch these things. This place was not far from Glazed Light City. Even more powerful cultivators were making their way here. Whether or not he could successfully escape was still unknown. If he took away these hundreds of storage pouches, it was very likely that it would bring him unexpected trouble. Su Zimo carefully probed the area. After confirming that there was no danger ahead, he headed outside. "Lord County Governor, you sure are capable. Those scarlet blood spiders killed more than 100,000 people. Nearly 10,000 of my cultivators died. If not for you, the consequences would have been unimaginable." Outside the mining area, Lu Yu, the city lord of Glazed Light City, bowed slightly to the middle-aged man in a long robe in front of him. This middle-aged man had a head full of gray hair, and his hands were behind his back as he stood in the air without moving at all. His eyes were deep, and his entire body emanated a dignified aura. This person was the county governor of Azure Cloud County, True Immortal Mirror Moon. When True Immortal Mirror Moon heard that something had happened in Glazed Light City, he immediately used the teleportation formation to come here. He had just attacked and suppressed a scarlet blood spider. A true immortal's body was full of treasures. Even if he couldn't subdue the scarlet blood spider, he could still obtain a lot of benefits by killing it. Mirror Moon wasn't in a hurry to deal with the scarlet blood spider. Instead, he came here. On the other side, the armored man who had luckily escaped from the Snow-White Butterfly's killing move was describing the scene in the mine, just now with a pale face. If I'm not mistaken, it should be an ice butterfly. True Immortal Mirror Moon said in a low voice. The butterfly race is mostly weak and doesn't pose much of a threat. However, there are some experts among them. The strongest are the monarch butterflies, and the ice butterflies are second. I'm guessing that this ice butterfly's cultivation, before it was sealed, was most likely at the true first realm. A true first realm cultivator was a true immortal. In other words, this ice butterfly was once a true immortal. Lu Yu the armored man, and the others were nervous. True Immortal Mirror Moon smiled. You don't have to worry. This ice butterfly has been sealed for many years, and has just awakened. It'll take a long time for it to recover to its peak. From what it's shown, it should still be at the Sky Immortal level. There's nothing to be afraid of. True Immortal Mirror Moon said in a low voice. Lu Yu passed down my orders. All the guards of Glazed Light City, including the executioners, are to be mobilized and search for the ice butterfly. This ice butterfly can't have gone far. Inform me immediately if there's any news. True Immortal Mirror Moon set up an inescapable net to track down the ice butterfly. Although Azure Cloud County was large, the ice butterfly was too obvious a target. Unless it escaped Azure Cloud County, it would be difficult for the ice butterfly to avoid True Immortal Mirror Moon's eyes and ears. Lu Yu seemed to have thought of something. He ordered one of his guards and whispered, Everyone in this mine is dead. Hundreds of Earth Immortals have fallen as well. Go down and clean up the battlefield. Most importantly, retrieve the storage pouches of the several hundred Earth Immortals. Understood. The guard shouted in a low voice. True Immortal Mirror Moon also prepared to leave. Suddenly, he stopped in his tracks and turned around slowly. He looked at the mine not far away and frowned slightly. What's wrong? Lu Yu saw the strange look on True Immortal Mirror Moon's face, and quickly asked. True Immortal Mirror Moon pointed at a mine not far away and asked, That ice butterfly, was it dug out from this mine? It's absolutely true. The armored man quickly said. Several hundred cultivators under my command, and some level 9 Earth Immortals, were all killed by this ice butterfly. There's no mistake about it. If that's the case, there shouldn't be anyone alive in this mine. True Immortal Mirror Moon said softly. They must all be dead. Without waiting for the armored man to speak, Lu Yu said, The people in this mine were all arcane immortals. If there were 2 such powerful beings in there, it would be strange if there were still people alive. Strange? True Immortal Mirror Moon stared at the mine not far away with a faint smile. County Governor, do you mean that there are still people alive in there? Lu Yu asked with a frown. Before he could finish his sentence, a vague figure appeared at the entrance of the mine and limped out. When Su Zimo arrived at the entrance of the mine, he sensed that something was wrong. There were many powerful auras outside. At the same time, he also sensed that one of the most powerful auras had locked onto him. It was too late for him to retreat now. Su Zimo could only brace himself and walk out. Outside the mine, many powerful people were standing in the air. There were Earth Immortals, Sky Immortals, the armored man who escaped, and the governor of Glazed Light City. At this moment, all of them were staring at Su Zimo in disbelief. It was as if they had seen a ghost. At the forefront of these people stood a middle-aged man with gray hair. He was looking at Su Zimo with great interest. 2K Reading Net. Chapter 1926. How is this possible? In the air, the armored man was shocked. Two extremely terrifying creatures had been dug out from the mines. Among them, the snow-white butterfly had almost killed him. Even a heaven immortal like him had almost died in this mine. However, this Xian immortal had walked out alive. Interesting. Mirror Moon True Deity chuckled. Tell us your name. Lu Yu, the city governor of Luguang City, asked in a deep voice. There was no way Su Zimo could leave this place in front of everyone. He could only maintain his composure and cupped his fists. I am Su Zimo from the lower world. Greetings, exalted immortals. So you're just a servant. Hearing Su Zimo's words, many experts looked at him with disdain and curled their lips. Among the cultivators present, the weakest was an earth immortal. Although Su Zimo was a stage 9 Xian immortal, he was not worthy of their attention. Su Zimo saw the reactions of the crowd. The environment in the upper realm was more difficult than he had imagined. No matter what achievements one had in the lower realm, no matter how many heavenly tribulations one had passed, no matter how talented one was, as long as one was from the lower realm, one would be looked down upon, mocked, ridiculed, humiliated, and even enslaved. This was because in the eyes of these upper realm cultivators who had ascended were not treated as humans at all. Su Zimo remained silent. With his current cultivation, it was impossible for him to protect himself, let alone change the situation. Lu Yu's eyes were sharp as he sized up Su Zimo. He did not find anything special. This stage 9 Xian immortal was extremely ordinary. He even looked a little weak, like a scholar in the mortal world. He was harmless to humans and animals. Su Zimo had already hidden Qinglian's bloodline. On the Dragon Abyss planet, even if he revealed Qinglian's bloodline, no one would be able to recognize him. However, it was different on the Divine Cloud continent. Moreover, the gray-haired man in the lead was unfathomable. It was very likely that he was the legendary county governor of Azure Cloud County. How did a Xian immortal like you come out alive? Lu Yu narrowed his eyes and asked faintly. The aura of a heaven immortal realm expert was being emitted from his body, as if he would immediately attack and kill Su Zimo if he gave the wrong answer. Glazed Light City was considered an important city in the Cyan Cloud County. To be able to sit on the position of Glazed Light City's city lord, they were naturally people who were decisive in killing. Their hands were stained with who knows how much blood. The fact that I'm still alive is probably due to luck. Su Zimo's expression was calm as he said, originally, I was about to be killed by a blood-red spider. Who would have thought that a snow-white butterfly would suddenly awaken, and these two ancient creatures would fight? Su Zimo recounted the scene in the mining area, but skipped the part where Snow-White Butterfly treated him. There was no falsehood in his words. Coming from Su Zimo's mouth, it gave people the feeling that he was lucky enough to survive, because he stayed out of the battle between the two great creatures. Nonsense! Lu Yu suddenly hollered. Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat, but he quickly calmed down. His gaze met Lu Yu's without the slightest bit of evasion, and his expression was calm. In fact, Lu Yu only vaguely felt that there was something wrong with Su Zimo's words, but he could not pinpoint exactly what was wrong. How dare a servant be dishonest in front of me? Lu Yu extended his palm, and a huge amount of vitality gathered, instantly surrounding Su Zimo and dragging him in front of him. The power of a heaven immortal was too strong and Su Zimo could not resist at all. Lu Yu whispered, "This hunting gathering is a little strange. Is there some secret behind it? I wonder if County Governor..." "You'd better not ask about County Governor Yuanzhua." True Immortal Mirror Moon interrupted Lu Yu coldly. Lu Yu lowered his head and smiled. He did not dare to refute. After a short pause, True Immortal Mirror Moon's expression softened. "You don't have to think too much about it. The hunting gathering will be as usual. All the major cities will be invited to watch. If you're interested, you can come along." Chapter 1927. Su Zimo had stayed in Glazed Light City for more than a month. Although he was not imprisoned, there were more than a dozen Earth Immortal guards around him. He could not move around freely, and was under house arrest. These days, the entire Cyan Cloud County was not peaceful. Listening to the discussions of the Earth Immortals, True Immortal Mirror Moon, the guardian of Cyan Cloud County, found the trail of the ice butterfly and fought with it. The ice butterfly escaped with serious injuries. In the end, the ice butterfly attracted the true immortals of several factions, and even fought with true immortal Mirror Moon. The whole Cyan Cloud County was shaken. The details of the fight were not known to the many Earth immortals in Glazed Light City. They only heard that true immortal Mirror Moon did not get the ice butterfly in the end. Suzimo had only met the ice butterfly once, but in his heart, he did not want the ice butterfly to fall into the hands of true immortal Mirror Moon and the others. For ancient creatures like the red blood spider and the ice butterfly, once discovered, they would either be tamed and enslaved, or killed and refined. Almost none of them had a good ending. Hearing this, Suzimo realized that true immortal Mirror Moon would be back soon, and he would be leaving Glazed Light City. As expected, a day later, true immortal Mirror Moon and the governor of Glazed Light City appeared at the same time. They took Suzimo away and used the teleportation formation in the city to leave. The teleportation formation in Glazed Light City was obviously better than the one in Dragon Lake City. The formation patterns were more complex and mysterious, and the teleportation distance was also greatly increased. During the teleportation, Suzimo could barely open his eyes and lost his 5 senses. After an unknown period of time, Suzimo regained his senses and found himself on another unfamiliar teleportation formation. Where is this? Suzimo asked instinctively. This is the ancient city at the center of Cyan Cloud County, Thunder Splendor City. An Earth Immortal guard said in a deep voice. The group left the hall of the teleportation formation and came to the ancient city. Suzimo looked around. This ancient city looked more majestic and sturdy than Glazed Light City. The city walls were dark and tall. The architectural style of the city leaned towards darkness, which was very different from Glazed Light City. It gave people an inexplicable sense of oppression. This city is a little strange, Suzimo thought to himself. In this city, the most eye-catching thing was the center of the ancient city. There was a huge and thick stone pillar that rose into the sky. Around the stone pillar were chains as thick as an arm. Suzimo narrowed his eyes slightly. Even though he was relatively far away, he was still able to see that the surface of this stone pillar was inscribed with numerous dense talisman markings that emitted a strange energy. That stone pillar is one with the ancient city. It's truly extraordinary. Suzimo pretended to exclaim inadvertently. Ha! Lu Yu couldn't help but chuckle when he heard this. And he said, a Xian immortal like you does have some discerning eyes to be able to discern that this stone pillar is extraordinary. I don't mind telling you that this is the absolute lightning divine pillar, and it was personally crafted by the immortal king of the Darjin dynasty a few tens of thousands of years ago from the Outerium divine rock. Its surface is inscribed with numerous talisman markings and restrictions, and it's the foundation of Absolute Lightning City. With this Absolute Thunder God pillar, there won't be the slightest bit of lightning energy in this ancient city. Even the tribulation of thunder and heavenly tribulations won't descend upon this city. Why is that? Suzimo frowned slightly and asked. Why won't the thunderous energy descend upon this place? Humph. Lu Yu harumphed coldly as a thought crossed his mind. He was about to explain when the governor of Azure Cloud County, true immortal Mirror Moon, glanced at Suzimo and said calmly, that's enough, it's useless for you to know that. For some reason, Suzimo felt that both the governor of Azure Cloud County and Lu Yu were looking at him in a special way. Apart from the disdain they had for low-leveled cultivators of the lower realm, there was also a hint of mockery and mockery. Greetings, Governor. At that instant, a group of people approached from not far away. Their leader had a powerful aura and a bulky figure, like an iron tower. He arrived before true immortal Mirror Moon and bowed. There's no need to be so courteous. True immortal Mirror Moon nodded slightly. The person exchanged glances with Lu Yu and nodded as a form of greeting. Suzimo glanced at him coldly. This person should be the city lord of Magnificent Thunder City. How's the preparation for the hunting gathering going? True immortal Mirror Moon asked. The city lord of Magnificent Thunder City said in a deep voice. Everything is ready. We're just waiting for Duke Yuanzhua and the governor to host it. Many city lords have come for the hunting gathering too. The hunting gathering? Duke Yuanzhua? The two of them revealed some information in their conversation that caught Su Zimo's attention. Until now, he still had no idea why the governor of Azure Cloud County had brought him to Magnificent Thunder City. Could it be that the governor of Azure Cloud County was referring to the hunting gathering when he said he would give him a chance? Who was Duke Yuanzhua? Judging from the tone of the city lord of Magnificent Thunder City, Duke Yuanzhua's status seemed to be even higher than the governor of Azure Cloud County. Could it be that Duke Yuanzhua was one of the legendary immortal emperors? True Immortal Mirror Moon said, Duke Yuanzhua is cultivating in seclusion. We don't know if he'll come this time. Su Zimo pondered for a while and asked, Governor, may I know what I'm here for? The city lord of Magnificent Thunder City looked at Su Zimo and sized him up. He then looked at Lu Yu with a questioning look. I'm here for the hunting gathering. The corners of Lu Yu's mouth curled up as he spoke with a faint smile. A hint of mockery flashed in the eyes of the city lord of Magnificent Thunder City, and he smiled as well. True Immortal Mirror Moon looked at Su Zimo calmly and said, This is the chance I'm going to give you. The hunting gathering. At this moment, the top mystic immortals from all over the Dajin Immortal Kingdom have gathered here. There are close to 100,000 people, and you're one of them. After 10 days, you'll enter a dungeon under Magnificent Thunder City. Although it's a dungeon, it has its own space. It's vast and there are mountains and rivers, plants and all kinds of living creatures. This dungeon is called the 10 Extremes Prison. Su Zimo's expression did not change, but he was secretly shocked. The governor of Azure Cloud County made it sound easy, but it was a dungeon after all. It was called the 10 Extremes Prison. The name itself was ferocious. The commandery governor of the Azure Cloud County continued, In this 10 Extremes Prison, you and the other living beings might be the prey, or the hunters. As for you, there is only one thing you need to do, and that is to survive. Only the real hunters can survive until the end, just as expected. Back then, when the governor of Azure Cloud County saved Su Zimo and said he would give him a chance, Su Zimo felt that things were not that simple. Now, it seemed that the 10 Extremes Prison was not a good place, and there would be countless dangers. Su Zimo asked expressionlessly, How long do we have to stay in there, and how can we leave the 10 Extremes Prison? There's no time limit. In the end, only 100 people can leave alive. The governor of Azure Cloud County said calmly. Su Zimo was shocked. There were close to 100,000 mystic immortals, but only 100 people could survive. Bookmark for easy reading. Chapter 1928. Take him away. True Immortal Mirror Moon waved her hand. Some Earth Immortal guards came forward and took Su Zimo away. I think this kid is very ordinary. He's just an ordinary Xian immortal. Why did the county governor look at him differently and explain to him personally? Lu Yu could not help but ask as he looked at Su Zimo's back. True Immortal Mirror Moon shook her head slightly and said, Nothing much. I just feel that this kid is a little special. Of course, I might have misjudged him. The city lord of Absolute Thunder City said, Among the many servants who came this time, there are a few Xian immortals with some skills and talent. Among them, there's a woman who ascended after undergoing the 4 in 9 heavenly tribulation. In less than 5,000 years, she has already cultivated to the 9th level of Xian Ian. There's another person with a strong physique that's different from ordinary people. His vitality is strong, and he's invincible in close combat. There's also a servant who practices the sword. His swordsmanship is passable, and his comprehension of the sword Dao is not bad. At this point, the city lord of Absolute Thunder City paused for a while and said, Compared to these servants just now, that person is really not worth mentioning. No matter what, the scale of this hunting game is huge, and there are many people. It will definitely be more exciting and interesting than before. True Immortal Mirror Moon chuckled. 10 days later, in Absolute Thunder City, close to 100,000 Xian immortals from the lower realm gathered in the city lord's mansion. At a glance, it was a dense black mass. The city lord's mansion of Absolute Thunder City was more magnificent than the one in Dragon Lake City. On a wide square, it was more than enough to accommodate 100,000 Xian immortals. Su Zimo was also in the crowd and secretly observed. Close to 100,000 Xian immortals. Most of them were level 8 and level 9 Xian immortals. Only a few of them were level 7 Xian immortals. At the front of the square, there was a stone staircase with a few hundred steps. It extended up to an open-air hall before stopping. At the end of the stone staircase was the main seat of the hall. The two sides of the hall were already filled with people. All of them looked relaxed as they ate the immortal fruits and drank the wine in front of them. Do you see that? Those who can sit in the main hall are all castellans from major cities. There are also some famous patriarch of the immortal sects. The one with white hair and a youthful face is the sect leader of the Heavenly Mountain Immortal sect. It is said that he is also a true immortal expert. In the crowd, several cultivators were discussing in low voices. Although they were geniuses in the lower realm, in the upper realm, they had been fighting for thousands of years, or even tens of thousands of years. Most of them had lost their edge and sharpened their edges. They knew very well that even if they had cultivated to stage 8 and stage 9 mystic immortals, they were no different from ants in the eyes of these powerful exalted immortals. Hehe, all the city lords of Cyan Cloud County and all the big shots are here. This is the chance for me, Li Tian, to make a name for myself. Among the crowd, a burly man with a ferocious expression grinned, his eyes blazing. Everyone present knew that with their cultivation bases, identities and statuses, they would normally not have the opportunity to come into contact with these exalted immortals in the Grand Hall. This hunting gathering was a chance for everyone to change their fates. Su Zimo's face was as calm as still water. He was extremely calm as he scanned his surroundings. He could vaguely sense that this hunting gathering was definitely not simple. Everyone wanted to be one of the 100 survivors. However, in reality, most of them were only one of the 90,000 survivors. In the crowd, Su Zimo discovered a few cultivators who were not to be trifled with. These people exuded a dangerous aura. At this moment, Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat. He turned his head and looked at a woman beside him. This woman was dressed in purple, and her long hair was tied behind her head. She had a voluptuous figure and fair skin. At first glance, her side profile did not seem outstanding. However, this woman was extremely pleasing to the eye. Just a few more glances, and one would feel that this woman had an extraordinary temperament. There was an indescribable gentleness in her appearance. As for Su Zimo, he did not just take a few more glances. Instead, he stared at this woman in purple for a long time. Under normal circumstances, at their cultivation realm, they would definitely sense it if they were stared at in such a manner. However, this woman in purple did not turn back the entire time. Her expression was calm, and her breathing did not fluctuate at all, as though she did not notice it at all. Interesting. Su Zimo retracted his gaze. He sensed a familiar aura from this woman in purple that was similar to the hidden assassin faction of Tianhuang mainland. Even he nearly overlooked the existence of this woman in purple. This was an extremely dangerous assassin. Right then, a figure stepped on a rainbow cloud and descended slowly above the city lord's residence, looking down at everyone from above. Greetings, Lord County Governor. The various city lords in the hall, including the sect masters and sect masters of some sects, stood up one after another and cupped their fists with respectful expressions. Everything in the world belonged to the king. Su Shi had once told Su Zimo that in the Great Gene Immortal Kingdom, all major sects, factions and families had to abide by the rules of the Great Gene Immortal Kingdom and not defy them. The ruling power of the Great Gene Immortal Kingdom over this piece of land was even stronger than the Great Zhou Empire over the north region of Tianhuang mainland. Everyone, there's no need to stand on ceremony. True Immortal Mirrormoon said, I've just received news that Duke Yuanzhua will be coming to Thunder City personally to watch the hunting gathering. The 100 people who survive this hunting gathering will also have the opportunity to follow Duke Yuanzhua. Wow! Instantly, there was an uproar in the crowd. Duke Yuanzhua is coming too? This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. If I can stand out in this hunting gathering and gain the favor of Duke Yuanzhua, who will dare to look down on me in the future? Who will dare to call me a servant? This was an opportunity to ascend to the heavens. In the square, many mystic immortals were excited and clamoring. In contrast to the uproar in the square, the various city lords, factions and sect masters in the hall were nonchalant. They merely smiled faintly with mocking expressions. A bunch of servants and ants. Do you think you can make a comeback with the hunting gathering? Haha, this is where our fun lies. The various city lords and sect masters chuckled. Due to the distance and the uproar of the 100,000 mystic immortals in the square, almost no one could hear what the city lords were saying. Only Su Zimo frowned slightly as a hint of gloom flashed in his eyes. He had Qinglian's bloodline, and his hearing and eyesight were shockingly powerful. He had heard those two sentences clearly. This hunting gathering was definitely not that simple. At this moment, heavenly music came from the distant horizon. Countless instruments were playing at the same time, creating a decadent sound. The noise in the square quieted down instantly. Everyone looked over instinctively. In the sky, there were 3,000 beauties flying. These women were wearing thin silk palace gowns, and each of them was unparalleled in their beauty. They were like fairies from the 9 heavens. Some of the women held flower baskets in their hands and gently waved them. Pink flower petals scattered in all directions and fell gently to the ground like a rain of flowers. It was pleasing to the eye. Some of the women held a guzheng and gently plucked it with their slender fingers, creating a pleasant sound. Some of the women held a jade flute and exhaled. The sound of the flute lingered in the air. In the middle of the 3,000 women, there was a carriage moving forward slowly. A young and handsome man leaned against the carriage. His eyes were like gems in the deep sea, shining with a strange light. The corners of his mouth were slightly curled up. His smile was slightly evil and emitted a charming aura. 2K Reading Network. Chapter 1929. What a grand display. Many Xian immortals on the square were shocked and dumbfounded. Those girls were as beautiful as fairies. Any one of them could be considered a peerless beauty, not to mention there were 3,000 of them. What was more terrifying was that all of them were Earth-level immortals. That alone was enough to make the mystic immortals on the square feel inferior. Everyone realized that the young man who was surrounded by thousands of flowers must be the Cyan Cloud County's commandery Prince Yuanzhua. Just as they expected, the young man stood up slowly, and the 3,000 fairies knelt down obediently. Mirror Moon True Immortal, the city lords, and the patriarch also stood up and bowed. They said in unison, "Greetings, Duke Yuanzhua. A real man should be like this." Li Tian, the burly man in the crowd, clenched his fists and said in a low voice. Su Zimo frowned slightly and realized that something was amiss. Judging from the situation, Duke Yuanzhua's status in Azure Cloud County was obviously higher than the Azure Cloud County governor. However, Duke Yuanzhua's cultivation level was not high. He was only at Earth level. That's strange. Duke Yuanzhua is only an Earth level immortal, but he can make so many sky immortals, and even a true immortal like the Azure Cloud County governor bow down to him. A mystic immortal mumbled. "Humph." Another person sneered. "What do you know? Even if the Duke and Princess of the Dejin Celestial Nation do not have a high cultivation level, they are still of royal blood and have the support of the deity king of the Dejin Celestial Nation. A prefectural governor is at most a manager. How can his power and status be compared to the Duke and Princess of the Dejin Celestial Nation?" Su Zimo recalled what Su Shi, the city lord of Longyuan City, said to him. The executioners were divided into earthly guards and heavenly guards. Only members of the royal family could command the executioners. Even the county governor did not have the right to command them. The scene in front of him confirmed Su Shi's words. Even so, Su Zimo was still confused. Even if Duke Yuanzhua was of royal blood and had a high status, his cultivation level, Duke Yuanzhua, seemed to be lower. With the royal bloodline flowing through his veins, there was bound to be an endless supply of cultivation resources, treasures, and cultivation techniques. Furthermore, the people he came into contact with were all experts. Duke Yuanzhua might be young, but he was at least 40,000 years old. Either this commandery Prince Yuanzhua's talent was average, or he had taken the wrong path. He was obsessed with women, and did not put his mind on cultivation. Just as Su Zimo was pondering, Duke Yuanzhua had already arrived at the main hall. The final winner of this hunt will have a chance to follow me. As long as you are absolutely loyal, I will not treat you unfairly. Mirror Moon True Deity had said it before. Now that Duke Yuanzhua had admitted it himself, no one doubted it anymore. Duke Yuanzhua, being of royal blood, would not go back on his words. We must seize this opportunity. I didn't expect Duke Yuanzhua, a royal, to not have any prejudice against people like us who ascended from the lower realm. He even gave us such a chance. That's right. Just this point alone is worth me risking my life to follow. The mystic immortals present had been in the upper realm for many years. They had been through a lot of hardships, coldness, and bullying. Now that Duke Yuanzhua had appeared, everyone was convinced. Moreover, this was a chance to change their fate and get rid of their lowly status. Who would not be tempted? Of course, among the mystic immortals, there were a few who remained calm and did not seem to be moved. One of them was Su Zimo. The other was the lady in purple beside him. Su Zimo was not surprised that the lady in purple was so calm. If she did not have such a state of mind, she would have died many times over. However, the reason why Su Zimo maintained his composure was because he felt that there was something strange about this matter. What was Duke Yuanzhua's status? He was only an earth deity, but he could command the executioners at will. Even the governor of Green Cloud County had to obey his orders. Why would such a powerful person choose 100 mystic immortals to follow him? It did not make sense. Another strange thing was that the mystic immortals who participated in this hunting gathering were all ascended from the lower realm. Was it really like what others said? Was this a fair chance for the people from the lower realm to change their fate? After Duke Yuanzhua finished speaking, he went to the main seat and sat down. Mirror Moon True Deity stepped forward and said loudly, "Once the hunting gathering starts, the 10 Extremes prison will display a hunting list. It will only show the top 100, and it will be ranked according to the number of people you have hunted. Those who survive in the end and are listed on the hunting list will be the final winners. They will be able to leave the 10 Extremes prison." After hearing this, most of the cultivators in the square were not surprised. It was as if they were already familiar with the rules of the hunting gathering. However, Su Zimo was secretly shocked. He felt a chill down his spine. Just now, Mirror Moon True Deity did not mention the word kill. However, if one thought about it carefully, one would be able to feel the bloodshed behind it. It was cruel and vicious. When Mirror Moon True Deity said hunting, she was referring to killing. In other words, the so-called hunting list was, in fact, a killing list. What was more terrifying was the rules of the hunting gathering. The hunting list only showed the top 100. In other words, if one wanted to make it onto the list, he or she would have to kill continuously. If one stopped, he or she might be overtaken by those behind him, or her, and be kicked out of the hunting list. Once one entered the 10 Extremes prison, he or she would not have a choice. Even if one did not want to fight with others, there would still be people who would find and kill him or her. It was not hard to imagine that by the end of the hunting gathering, less than 10% of the 100,000 mystic immortals would be left alive. This was not a hunting gathering. It was a killing feast organized by the exalted immortals, city lords, VIPs, and the authorities. Su Zimo raised his head and looked at the exalted immortals in the hall. When Mirror Moon True Deity said those words, her tone was cold. She did not care about the lives of the 100,000 mystic immortals. The other city lords and the patriarch were also relaxed. They were chatting softly. The hunting gathering had been held countless times, thus they were already used to it. Su Zimo lowered his head slightly. His eyes were cold. The more one knew about the upper realm, the more powerless they felt. Dai Yu and the human emperor had told him the same thing. The upper realm was much more dangerous and cruel than the lower realm. This kind of danger and cruelty did not come from the immortal kingdoms, sects, and races. It also came from the contempt that the upper realm beings had for the lower realm beings. The upper realm beings had sealed off most of the cultivation resources. It was almost impossible for the lower realm beings to surpass them and replace them. This was the fate of the lower realm beings. Eternal Sacred King. Chapter 1930. True Immortal Mirror Moon suddenly waved her hand, and from her wide sleeves flew out a dense cluster of green dots of light. They scattered on the square below, and landed precisely in front of the 100,000 Xian immortals. This showed how powerful True Immortal Mirror Moon's control was. These dark green spots of light appeared. Su Zimou looked at them carefully. The light spots in front of him were actually a jade token about 6 inches long and 2 fingers wide. The token's surface glowed with a mysterious aura. This is the legendary hunting token. We have to use our divine sense to write our names on one side of the token. It's a divine sense imprint. Some of the Xian immortals in the crowd seemed to know a lot about the hunting token. They reached out and grabbed the token and started to leave their divine sense imprints on it. Can't we not write it? Someone asked softly. Haha, you better not write it. Another cultivator sneered. If you don't leave your divine sense imprint on the hunting token, the moment you enter the 10 Extremes prison, the hunting board will punish you and kill you mercilessly. I heard that the hunting board in the 10 Extremes prison is a terrifying psychic dharma treasure. Think about it, and see if you can withstand the punishment of the psychic dharma treasure. The cultivator who asked the first question was shocked. His face turned pale, and he hurriedly used his divine sense to leave his name on the hunting token. Su Zimou frowned slightly. He didn't know why, but the act of leaving his divine sense imprint made him instinctively feel conflicted. Moreover, he didn't want to compete for the hunting board. But now the situation was pressing. Under the gaze of so many exalted immortals, he had no choice. Su Zimou hesitated for a moment, but still left his name Su Zimou on one side of the hunting token. However, the other side of the hunting order was blank. There was nothing on it. Soon, the 100,000 Xian immortals in the square had left their divine sense imprints on the hunting token. Seeing this, True Immortal Mirror Moon nodded slightly in satisfaction. She smiled and said, "The hunting token has officially begun. Good luck, everyone." As soon as she finished speaking, True Immortal Mirror Moon waved her hand. Rumble! A violent tremor came from the square. Then, the ground beneath the Xian immortals' feet suddenly caved in. Caught off guard, everyone stepped on air. A powerful suction force burst forth from below. Everyone could not control their bodies. Amid a wave of panicked screams and shouts, they quickly fell downwards. Su Zimou's heart skipped a beat. However, he calmed down swiftly and looked down instead. The ground beneath his feet disappeared and was replaced by a pitch-black abyss that seemed to lead to the depths of hell. Su Zimou caught a glimpse of a purple figure from the corner of his eyes. It was that female assassin. Just now, Su Zimou noticed that the female assassin had left her name on the hunting order. Tang Zi, was it her alias or her real name? Tang Zi's face didn't show the slightest bit of emotion, even after encountering such an unforeseen event. Her expression remained indifferent from the beginning. Everyone continued to fall in the boundless darkness. The 10 Extremes prison was built deep under the Thunder City. After a long time, just now a bright light appeared. It was like a huge water screen that sparkled. Everyone fell on the water screen and quickly passed through it. Their eyes suddenly widened, as if they had arrived in another world. The powerful suction force on their bodies suddenly disappeared. Everyone hurriedly controlled their bodies and landed on the ground. There were mountains and dense forests around them. Not far away, the sound of flowing water could be heard. In the distance, cranes could be seen flying in the sky. Everyone realized that they had arrived at the 10 Extremes prison. The surroundings seemed peaceful, but everyone knew that once they entered this place, they would be surrounded by danger. Every step they took was dangerous. They could die at any time. 100,000 Xian immortals gathered in the square of the city lord's mansion. They were very close to each other. Now, everyone had fallen at the same time and arrived at the 10 Extremes prison. Although they were scattered, they were not very far from each other. The gathering of the hunt had officially begun. In other words, in this place, everyone could attack and kill as they wished without any fear. The surroundings suddenly fell into an eerie silence. It was like the calm before the storm. It was oppressive and suffocating. The air was filled with a murderous intent. Many Xian immortals held their breaths and tensed up. No one dared to act rashly. In this atmosphere, a slight move could affect the entire situation. Any meaningless action could lead to a bloody battle. Some of the Xian immortals even had beads of sweat rolling down their faces. At this moment, a pitch-black scroll suddenly descended from the water curtain in the sky. It emitted a heart-palpitating aura, and its pressure surged. Everyone raised their heads to look in horror. "What's that?" someone asked softly. Under everyone's gazes, the black scroll slowly unfurled, revealing a pitch-black canvas. "That should be the hunting board," another person said. The appearance of the hunting board seemed to have eased the tense atmosphere. Almost everyone's attention was attracted by the hunting board. Su Zimo only glanced at it before withdrawing his gaze. Taking advantage of everyone's distraction, his figure flashed, and he passed by many cultivators, quickly leaving the battlefield. It was as if a gust of wind had blown past. Before many people could react, Su Zimo had already left. If he wanted to kill during this process, these people would not be spared. They would not even know how they died. Almost at the same time as Su Zimo made his move, Tang Zi, who was not far away, made the same decision. Tang Zi quickly withdrew her aura. Her movement technique was agile and graceful like a ghost. After a few flashes, she also left the battlefield. When Su Zimo looked at Tang Zi, the latter also turned her head to look at him. Their gazes met in midair. Tang Zi's expression was indifferent. She quickly turned her head and disappeared into the dense forest. "Kill!" At this moment, a loud shout suddenly came from the crowd not far away. The burly man Li Tian suddenly attacked. He swung a thick copper rod and hit the temple of a Xian immortal. Poof! The Xian immortal was still looking up at the hunting board. He could not react in time. His head was smashed into pieces, and blood splattered everywhere. A level 9 Xian immortal had died on the spot. This time, the battle had ignited, and a massacre had broken out. In an instant, many Xian immortals made their moves. Dharma treasures, celestial spells, secret techniques, and divine abilities were unleashed. The battlefield was in chaos, and the smell of blood permeated the air. In the blink of an eye, at least 1,000 Xian immortals had died. When the battle broke out, it was extremely difficult for people to escape even if they wanted to. Outside the battlefield, Su Zimo looked at the scene with a complicated expression. These people were all people who had ascended from the lower realm. However, under the will of the exalted immortals, they came here and killed each other involuntarily. If they wanted to leave alive, they had to keep killing. 2K Reading Network. Chapter 1931. After the massacre began, blood-red names appeared one after another on the pitch-black hunt leaderboard in the skies. The black canvas and scarlet words were extremely glaring. Behind those names, a series of numbers jumped and refreshed continuously. Right now Li Tian was in first place. The number behind him showed that it was 11. In just a few dozen breaths, the number of cultivators that died in Li Tian's hands had reached 11. That number was still increasing rapidly. Many cultivators fought against one another, causing blood to fill the air, and the stench of blood to fill the air. Heads, severed limbs and limbs were tossed up into the air. Everyone was in a killing frenzy. In fact, there were dozens of cultivators who had their eyes fixed on Su Zimo, who was outside the battlefield. After all, in the eyes of everyone, Su Zimo looked way too ordinary. Dressed in green robes and with delicate features, he even looked weak. The vast majority of cultivators would choose the weakest to kill. That way, the risk was the lowest and the consumption was the least. It was the most beneficial for them. Some of them fought their way out of the battlefield only to realize that the green-robed cultivator was long gone. A few other cultivators burrowed into the forest and chased after Su Zimo. Su Zimo's expression was calm as he shuttled through the forest. Channeling his mystic skills such as Heaven's Feet and Earth-traversing golden light, he was extremely fast. Before long, he had shaken off the few cultivators behind him completely. Even without using his extreme speed mystic skills, there was no one in the same cultivation realm who could match his speed. Su Zimo continued walking for a while more before he suddenly stopped in his tracks and frowned. He had clearly shaken off the tail behind him completely. However, for some reason, he had a feeling that he was being spied on the entire time. Could it be that female assassin? Su Zimo released his spirit consciousness and scanned his surroundings carefully. He did not even let go of the dried twigs and gravel beneath his feet, the leaves of the ancient trees, and even the ants in the mud. A true assassin would cultivate mystic skills such as invisibility, 36 transformations and 72 transformations. Su Zimo's spiritual sense had reached the second level of the Earth origin stage. He was confident that even if someone released the lesser invisibility technique nearby, he would be able to detect the abnormality and find them. However, after searching for a long time, he still did not find anything unusual, and the feeling of being spied on still hadn't disappeared. His every move was under the other party's control, and he was in a passive position. This was not a good feeling at all. Strange. Su Zimo murmured and closed his eyes. This time he didn't use his divine sense. Instead, he relied on his unfathomable spiritual sense to search for the source of this prying feeling. After a while, Su Zimo opened his eyes and looked up. A divine light flashed in his eyes. A giant eyeball had appeared in the sky and was looking down at the 10 Extremes prison. The source of that prying feeling came from this huge eyeball. Su Zimo had a guess in his heart, and his expression gradually turned cold. The City Lord's mansion. After the mystic immortals entered the 10 Extremes prison, the City Lords and the various ascendant immortals looked at each other with excitement. Haha, it's about to start. I wonder who will win this time. I think that Li Tian will win. Who wants to bet with me? A Khanate heaven-grade Dharma treasure. In the main hall, the City Lords and ascendant immortals were eating spirit fruits and drinking immortal wine as they discussed heatedly. In my opinion, that sword cultivator called Jinyu is not bad. He went through the 39 heavenly tribulations and ascended. He's decisive when it comes to killing. He's also trained at the border for thousands of years. Hehe, if that's the case, that Tang Zi is even stronger. That chick went through the 49 heavenly tribulations. Lu Yu, the city lord of Luguang City, smirked. Lord County Governor, let's not wait anymore. Hurry up and show the Mirage Mirror, so that we can see the situation inside. Yeah, don't miss any exciting battles. The City Lord of Thunder City also urged. He couldn't wait. All right. True Immortal Mirror Moon smiled faintly. She calmly formed a hand seal. Strands of powerful yuan qi revolved around her fingertips, and a multicolored light filled the air. Form. True Immortal Mirror Moon raised her finger and yelled. Ripples suddenly appeared in the void in front of him, as if they were condensing into a huge circular water mirror. After a while, the ripples on the mirror dissipated and calmed down. Through the mirror, he was able to observe everything that was taking place in the 10 Extremities prison. At this moment, almost 100,000 mystic immortals had just arrived, and were looking up at the hunting list in the sky. After a while, a great battle broke out. Through the mirror, the cultivators were able to observe the battle taking place in the 10 Extremes prison clearly, as if they were right in the middle of it. Haha, I knew it. That Li Tian is ruthless enough. He'll definitely get first place. Not necessarily. That Jinyu is right behind him. He's only killed a few fewer people than Li Tian. The hunting game has just begun. It's still early. Everyone in the hall toasted each other with relaxed expressions, as they enjoyed this feast of slaughter. Watching these ants from the lower worlds kill each other was one of the few things that these exalted immortals enjoyed. Normally speaking, every 10,000 years, Juele City would hold a hunting gathering. But for some reason, Duke Yuanzhua ordered another hunting game, just a few thousand years after the last one. And this time the scale was even bigger. Almost 100,000 mystic immortals had gathered. This meant that this hunting game would be even more bloody, cruel, and exciting. Duke Yuanzhua was surrounded by many fairies. He looked at the Mirage Mirror casually and asked, Mirror Moon, who do you think will win? True Immortal Mirror Moon bowed slightly and smiled. Li Tian, Jinyu, and Tang Zi are all good. If they're careful, they should be able to survive until the end. True Immortal Mirror Moon seemed to have thought of something. She paused for a while and stopped. What do you want to say? Duke Yuanzhua's sharp eyes caught the hesitation in True Immortal Mirror Moon's eyes and asked. True Immortal Mirror Moon said, This time, living creatures were dug out from the elemental spirit mine in Glazed Light City. I went there personally to suppress them. Duke Yuanzhua nodded and said, I know about this. I heard that people from Heaven and Earth Academy intervened, so I let it go. Yes. True Immortal Mirror Moon said. 2 ancient creatures were dug out from the elemental spirit mine outside Glazed Light City. They've just awakened and haven't recovered to their peak, but their combat power is terrifying. They can even kill most sky immortals. Normally, when these ancient creatures awaken, they'll start a massacre and devour flesh to recover their essence chi. Even Earth immortals and sky immortals can't escape death. Those mystic immortals digging in the mine won't be able to survive. But True Immortal Mirror Moon paused and turned to look at the Mirage Mirror. She said, there's a rank 9 mystic immortal who survived in the mine. Chapter 1932. Oh. Duke Yuanzhua raised his eyebrows in surprise. No matter what the reason was, even if it was pure luck, it was rare for a mystic immortal to survive the blood tribulation of the spirit mine. In the cultivation world, talent and potential were important, but fate, opportunity, and luck were also important. There were no demonic geniuses who could cultivate to the peak just by relying on their own talent and aptitude, without any fortuitous encounters. Looking down on everyone, True Immortal Mirror Moon said. According to what he said, it was pure luck that he survived. I brought him to Jewelay City and let him participate in the hunting game, because I want to see if his luck can help him survive until the end. After a pause, True Immortal Mirror Moon said in a low voice, if his luck is really good, he might be able to help the Duke. Who are you talking about? Duke Yuanzhua asked. That green-robed cultivator. True Immortal Mirror Moon pointed at a figure in the Mirage Mirror. At this moment, the bloody battle in the 10 Extremes prison had already broken out. The green-robed cultivator had already left the battlefield and stayed out of it. He was very conspicuous in the Mirage Mirror. Haha. Duke Yuanzhua chuckled and said, this person is quite smart. He left the battlefield early and didn't get involved. True Immortal Mirror Moon pointed at another purple figure that was about to disappear into the forest and said, that's Tang Zi, who ascended after the 49 heavenly tribulations. After a while through the Mirage Mirror, one could see that the green-robed cultivator was being targeted. The green-robed cultivator seemed to be afraid and didn't dare to fight. He also turned and entered the forest and left. Duke Yuanzhua shook his head and said, it's just luck. Without any trump cards, it's hard for him to stand out in this hunting game. The rule of the hunting game was the number of kills. Only the top 100 could leave the 10 Extremes prison alive. What Duke Yuanzhua meant was that even if the green-robed cultivator was lucky enough to survive until the end, he wouldn't be able to enter the hunting game without killing enough cultivators. That's true. His movement technique is quite good. True Immortal Mirror Moon stared at the Mirage Mirror and said. Lu Yu smiled and said, Lord County Governor, this is the 10 Extremes prison. There are many dangers that these people can't imagine. Every step is dangerous. No matter how good one's movement technique is, it's useless. Not long after, Commandery Prince Yuanzhua suddenly said, that person is dying. Everyone turned to look at the green figure, who was moving through a dense forest in the 10 Extremes prison. Absolute Thunder City's City Lord said, not far ahead of this child is the desolate swamp giant crocodile's territory. As long as this child enters that place, he will definitely awaken this giant crocodile. This giant desolate swamp crocodile is a tier 3 earth demon. This kid is dead for sure. Lu Yu chuckled. There were countless places like this in the 10 Absolutes prison. These demonic beasts from the upper realm had been captured by the exalted immortals present and intentionally imprisoned in the 10 Extremes prison. The 100,000 Xian immortals who entered the 10 Extremes prison would not only have to face the attacks of other Xian immortals, but they would also have to go through this sudden danger. This was one of the pleasures of the Ascendant Immortals. They loved to see the Xian immortals inside the prison tremble in fear and panic in front of these powerful demonic beasts that suddenly appeared. Seeing these Xian immortals struggle helplessly before being killed by the demonic beasts gave them a different kind of pleasure. At this moment, the battle there was getting more and more intense and bloody. Every moment Xian immortals would die. The names of the people on the hunting list were constantly changing and replacing. The numbers behind them were constantly jumping and increasing. However, some of the exalted immortals in the city lord's manor were looking at the green-robed cultivator. I didn't expect someone to encounter an earth demon so soon. Haha. This person looks so weak and bookish. I think he will faint on the spot when the giant desolate swamp crocodile appears. The exalted immortals laughed and waited for the green-robed cultivator to step into the death swamp on his own. Time trickled by. The smiles on the exalted immortals' faces gradually disappeared. Under normal circumstances, the green-robed cultivator would arrive at the death swamp very quickly according to his path. However, for some reason, when he was about to reach the edge of the death swamp, the green-robed cultivator stopped in his tracks and did not continue forward. Under the watchful eyes of the exalted immortals, the green-robed cultivator stopped in the same spot for a long time before he began to change his direction and walked in the other direction. Strange. Did he discover the death swamp? That's impossible. Although we call it the death swamp, the giant desolate swamp crocodile is dormant, and the surface of the swamp looks no different from normal ground. How did he discover it? It's probably a coincidence. The bloody scene that the exalted immortals were looking forward to did not happen, which made them a little unhappy. True immortal Mirrormoon smiled and said, "Seems like he's really lucky." Beside her, Luyu pursed his lips and said disapprovingly, "This kind of danger is everywhere in the 10 Extremities prison. I don't believe that he'll be so lucky every time." 2 hours later, the bloody battle that broke out in the 10 Extremities prison at the beginning was gradually coming to an end. Although many cultivators had already escaped from the battlefield amidst the chaos, the battlefield was still filled with corpses and rivers of blood. It was an extremely tragic sight. At least 20,000 mystic immortals had died in this battle. However, the hunt had only just begun. As the flames of battle died down, the attention of the exalted immortals dispersed and landed on some of the mystic immortals, who were the focus of attention, such as Li Tian, Jian Yu and the others. Unlike the others, true immortal Mirrormoon's gaze was fixed on Su Zimo the entire time. Suddenly Duke Yuanzhua asked, "How many is it now?" "This is the 4th one." True immortal Mirrormoon replied. Including the death swamp at the beginning, the green-robed cultivator had already avoided 4 similar places of danger along the way. The green-robed cultivator did not fight anyone the entire time. Instead, he wandered around the 10 Extremities prison. However, each time he was about to step into a dangerous place, he seemed to have sensed something in advance and would stop suddenly before changing directions to avoid it. If it happened once, it might be a coincidence. However, it happened 4 times in a row. That was something worth pondering about. Interesting. Duke Yuanzhua murmured softly as a glint appeared in his eyes. Most of his attention was focused on Su Zimo as well. At that moment, the tens of thousands of mystic immortals had already split up and were scattered all over the 10 Extremities prison. Through the mirage mirror, dozens of mystic immortals entered the death swamp by mistake without noticing and alerted the giant desolate swamp crocodile. The death swamp spun continuously, emitting a powerful suction force. The dozens of mystic immortals were trapped and could not break free at all. Immediately after, a gigantic crocodile that was a few thousand feet long appeared in the center of the whirlpool. Its eyes were ferocious, and saliva dripped from the corner of its mouth. Its aura was terrifying. In less than 10 breaths, the dozens of mystic immortals were devoured by the giant desolate swamp crocodile. Similar situations were happening all over the 10 Extremities prison. Everyone inside was prey. Chapter 1933. Within the 10 Extremities prison, Su Zimo's gaze was cold, and his expression was grim. It had been almost a day since he entered this place. Although he had left the battlefield long ago and avoided many cultivators intentionally, his journey was still filled with danger and danger. If he had not sensed danger in advance with his spirit perception, he would have been in great danger as well. He had witnessed a seemingly flat grassland turn into a muddy swamp with his own eyes. A gigantic crocodile charged out and devoured dozens of cultivators. He had also witnessed a few cultivators hiding in an ancient tree, waiting for an opportunity to strike. Unexpectedly, they touched a Xian beehive. Tens of thousands of dark wasps were startled. They swarmed over these cultivators and swept past them. In the blink of an eye, the few of them were killed by Acheron. They were pierced full of holes by the poisonous stingers of the Xian wasps and died miserably, be it the swamp gigantic crocodile or the Xian wasps. They were all earth demons, and were a cultivation realm higher than the mystic immortals of the 10 Extremities prison. A single Xian wasp was enough to massacre a group of mystic immortals, who could defend against a swarm of thousands of Xian wasps. If Su Zimo was careless and fell into the swarm of Xian wasps, it would be difficult for him to escape alive. Danger was everywhere in the 10 Extremities prison. What made Su Zimo feel even more uneasy was that he was being watched at all times. Although he could not see what was going on outside through the gigantic eye in the heavens, he could sense that someone was watching him. All of a sudden, Su Zimo frowned slightly, as though he sensed something. Once again he felt as though he was being watched. It was faintly discernible, and was slightly different from the feeling of being watched from the heavens. If not for his sharp spirit perception, he would not have been able to detect the difference. Su Zimo did not think too much about it, and continued to use his movement technique, circling around the forest without stopping. An hour later, Su Zimo stopped in his tracks once more. The feeling of being watched had yet to disappear. Someone was watching him. Instinctively, a purple-robed woman with an expressionless face appeared in Su Zimo's mind. Tang Zi. Just now, he released Heaven's Feet, earth-traversing golden light, and other supernatural powers. Then he used the environment to constantly change his direction. Among those of the same level, almost no one could catch up with him. But after an hour, he still couldn't shake off the tail behind him. Perhaps only someone who was extremely good at assassination would be able to hide their aura almost perfectly and follow behind him like maggots. Su Zimo sneered inwardly. Who would have thought that this female assassin would actually choose to attack him? Su Zimo maintained his composure and continued forward. City Lord's mansion, in the main hall. Commandery Prince Yuanzhua stared at Su Zimo through the mirage mirror for an entire day. However, he still knew nothing about this person, and could not see through him. Because from the beginning until the end, this person had never fought with others. There was a trace of impatience between Commandery Prince Yuanzhua's brows. His initial interest in Su Zimo had also gradually faded. If he doesn't have any powerful skills, it's useless to just hide here and there. Commandery Prince Yuanzhua yawned, and was a little disappointed. He curled his lips and said, "This person is too boring." "That's right." Lu Yu smiled and said, "Your Highness, after a day of killing, among these servants, those who really have some skills have already stood out. Why do you still want to waste your time on these nobodies?" "Your Highness, please take a look." Just as I expected, that Li Tian is indeed first on the hunting list. The game hasn't ended yet. It's still too early to judge the ranking now, the City Lord of Thunder City said. Commandery Prince Yuanzhua retracted his gaze from Su Zimo. Just as he was about to shift his attention, Mirror Moon True Immortal suddenly exclaimed, This person is being watched." "What?" Commandery Prince Yuanzhua asked. Mirror Moon True Immortal pointed at the mirage mirror and said, "Your Highness, please take a closer look. There's actually a figure hiding beside that ancient tree." Commandery Prince Yuanzhua squinted his eyes. As expected, in the void beside the ancient tree, there was a slight distortion. One could vaguely make out that it was a figure. But if one didn't look carefully, it would be very difficult to notice it. "It's the minor invisibility technique." Commandery Prince Yuanzhua nodded slightly and said. Mirror Moon True Immortal smiled and said, "If I'm not wrong, this person should be the girl who went through the 49 heavenly tribulations, Tang Zi." Oh, Commandery Prince Yuanzhua's eyes lit up. This was because he had just realized that Tang Zi had her eyes on Su Zimo. Mirror Moon True Immortal smiled and said, "Whether this Su Zimo is a cat or a dog, or a dragon or a snake, we'll find out soon enough." Commandery Prince Yuanzhua perked up, and focused his attention on Su Zimo again. Lu Yu shook his head and said, "As bystanders, even we can't detect Tang Zi's tracks. This person is probably going to be killed without knowing why. Commandery Prince Yuanzhua and Mirror Moon True Immortal stared at Su Zimo for almost 2 hours. This time, even Mirror Moon True Immortal couldn't take it anymore and clenched her fists. Su Zimo had been running around in the 10 Extremes prison. His movement technique was extremely fast, and he didn't have a destination. Tang Zi was following behind him. Even if she wanted to attack, she didn't have a chance. Chasing at such a high speed was very taxing on one's primordial spirit, chi, blood and stamina. It was already her limit to maintain the minor invisibility technique, let alone attacking Su Zimo. During these 2 hours, Su Zimo didn't seem to have changed. It was as if he didn't notice anything. Tang Zi, on the other hand, had used up a lot of energy. There were a few times when she couldn't maintain the minor invisibility technique, and was almost exposed. Commandery Prince Yuanzhua looked irritated. He gulped down a large cup of spirit tea and said, "What is this person doing running around in there? I really want to go in and kill him with one slap." Mirror Moon True Immortal took a deep breath and calmed herself down. She said, "Your Highness, please be patient. Let's wait and see." Right then, Su Zimo's speed was finally slowing down. Not long after, he stopped in front of a cave that was covered in blood and bones. A flying tiger lion beast lived in this cave. It was a rank 9 earth deity. About 4 hours ago, a few hundred cultivators passed by this place and alerted the beast. The flying tiger lion beast came out of the mountain and started a massacre. Hundreds of cultivators died in this place. After that, the beast left, leaving the cave empty. Through the mirage mirror, they saw Su Zimo pacing around the entrance of the cave. It seemed like he was carefully inspecting the cave. Not long after, Su Zimo walked into the cave and disappeared from the mirage mirror. This, Commandery Prince Yuanzhua and Mirror Moon True Immortal were stunned and looked at each other. Even though the mirage mirror was able to show everything that was happening in the 10 Extremities prison through the giant mirage eye in the sky. However, for a cave like this, or a hidden place, there were many blind spots. It could not show everything. Since the mirage eye could not see, it could not show anything on the mirage mirror. In other words, Su Zimo had temporarily escaped the surveillance of the prefecture governor's mansion. Commandery Prince Yuanzhua was looking forward to seeing the battle between Tang Zi and Su Zimo. To think that Su Zimo would not be able to see anything the moment he entered the cave. Commandery Prince Yuanzhua opened his mouth. He was so angry that he almost fainted. 2K Reader Network. Chapter 1934. Don't worry, Your Highness. True Immortal Mirror Moon said. This cave doesn't have a second exit. Now that Su Zimo has entered, there's no way out. He can't run around anymore. It's a good thing. The city lord of Thunder City suddenly said. Tang Zi went in as well. This time, there's nowhere for him to run. There's going to be a good show. Lu Yu chuckled. Duke Yuanzhua was displeased. He snorted. What's the point of running? I want to know how strong he is. I want to see them fight. Now that they've entered the cave, what good show can I watch? Duke Yuanzhua kept asking. Lu Yu smiled awkwardly, not daring to say anything. True Immortal Mirror Moon tried to calm him down. Your Highness, please calm down. We just need to wait for the result. If Tang Zi comes out of this cave in the end, it means that Su Zimo is dead. A dead person has no value, and is not worth Your Highness's attention. If Su Zimo can leave alive, it means that he's not weaker than Tang Zi. He's worth paying attention to. Duke Yuanzhua nodded and calmed down. 10 Extremes prison. Tang Zi came to the cave of the flying tiger beast and paused. Her face was expressionless, but she was hesitating. Among the 100,000 mystic immortals who entered the 10 Extremes prison, the only one she couldn't see through was the green-robed cultivator. This person, to her, was an unstable factor and a threat. If there was a chance to get rid of him, that would be for the best. But she had been chasing him all the way here. Keeping up with him was her limit. She didn't have a chance to attack. Originally, Tang Zi was very confident that with her methods, she would not be discovered by anyone. But now, looking at the cave in front of her, she hesitated. What's he doing in the cave? Could it be that he's found me and has been playing with me all this time? Tang Zi denied the thought as soon as it appeared. Impossible. Tang Zi thought to herself. Everyone is being watched by the Mirage Eye. How can he tell that my aura is mixed in? Tang Zi took a deep breath and stopped thinking about it. Even so, she was still extremely cautious. Her master had once warned her that in the path of assassination, life and death could be decided in an instant, and she could not afford to make any mistakes. Tang Zi came to the side of the cave and lifted up an abstruse immortal corpse. She hid behind the corpse and controlled it to move freely. It was as if a corpse had come back to life. If one were to look at it from the front, they would not be able to see that there was a person hiding behind the corpse. Tang Zi once again used the lesser invisibility spell, and together with the corpse, she silently walked into the cave. The cave was dark and deep, without any light. Even with her eyesight, visibility was extremely limited. After walking for a while, Tang Zi stopped. Not far ahead, a blurry figure could be vaguely seen. It was the green-robed cultivator. At that moment, the green-robed cultivator had his back facing her and walked extremely slowly, as though he was taking a leisurely stroll. All of a sudden, the green-robed cultivator's figure flashed for a moment, as though he had disappeared from the spot. In such a dark space, it was easy to see things wrongly. A normal cultivator's reaction would definitely be to blink their eyes and observe their surroundings. However, Tang Zi cultivated the Tao of assassination and no longer relied on her five senses to sense the outside world. Instead, she relied more on an instinctive reaction to avoid danger. The moment the green-robed cultivator's figure flashed, Tang Zi's heart skipped a beat, and her hair stood on end. Not good. I've been discovered. Tang Zi didn't even think about it. She immediately controlled the corpse in front of her and turned it around. She curled her body and completely hid behind the corpse. Before she could complete her actions, the green-robed cultivator had already appeared behind her and suddenly slapped down with his palm. Bang! The palm landed on the top of the corpse's head. Instantly, Tang Zi heard a series of cracking sounds of bones cracking. She was controlling this corpse, and she could clearly sense that the bones in the Xian immortal corpse were practically shattered by this palm strike. What a terrifying strength! Tang Zi was secretly speechless. If not for the fact that she was prepared and used the corpse as a shield, she would not have been able to withstand the power of that palm strike with her physical body. She could not understand how she had exposed herself to be discovered by the green-robed cultivator. She could not understand how this person could suddenly appear beside her and kill her as though he had teleported. Under such circumstances, she no longer had the energy to think about those questions. Retreat. There was only a single thought in Tang Zi's mind. If she could not kill him with a single strike, she had to escape 1,000 miles away and not get entangled with him any longer. Tang Zi made use of the corpse to block the sure-kill strike and did not stop at all. Her initially curled body suddenly bounced off, and she sped towards the depths of the cave, like an arrow released from a bow. The entire process happened in the blink of an eye. Su Zimo's sudden attack caused Tang Zi to flee at a shocking speed. He was not surprised that Tang Zi was able to dodge that attack. However, he was slightly surprised that Tang Zi did not choose to escape towards the entrance of the cave. Instead, she chose to escape towards the depths of the cave. Time was tight, and Su Zimo did not have the time to think about the reason behind it. He did not know if there was a second exit in the depths of the cave. However, if he allowed Tang Zi to escape from this cave, he would definitely be exposed to the gigantic eye in the skies if he chased after her and suppressed her. The reason why Su Zimo lured Tang Zi into this cave before attacking was because he wanted to get rid of the surveillance outside and did not want to expose too many of his trump cards. If Tang Zi really left this place, it would be difficult for him to make a move. Su Zimo was worried that there would be other unforeseen circumstances and made a prompt decision not to chase after her. Instead, he released the second flash of the 9 true dragon flashes. Swoosh! Su Zimo vanished from the spot. When he reappeared, he was already above Tang Zi. Su Zimo's eyes were like torches. He reached out his hand and grabbed towards Tang Zi's head. However, the moment he made his move, Tang Zi's figure also flickered and disappeared from the spot. What replaced it was the corpse that had been beaten to a pulp by Su Zimo just now. It's a minor theurgy position swap. Su Zimo was shocked. This Tang Zi was already prepared. Tang Zi controlled the corpse to enter the cave. Not only did she block his first attack, but she also used the corpse to release the minor theurgy, position swap, and escape from his control again. Su Zimo finally understood why Tang Zi escaped towards the depths of the cave. This was just a facade that Tang Zi had purposely created. Her real goal was to leave through the entrance of the cave. At this moment, Tang Zi successfully lured Su Zimo into the depths of the cave. However, she used position swap to return to the position of the corpse, which was even closer to the entrance of the cave. The mental battle between the two of them in this short period of time was even more dangerous than a head-on battle. If the exalted immortals of the City Lord's residence saw this scene, they would be amazed by the battle talent and skills displayed by the two of them. 2K Reading Network. Chapter 1935. Su Zimo saw through Tang Zi's tracks and lured her into this dark cave. Then, he used the True Dragon's 9 flashes to attack first. Tang Zi lost the initiative and almost died. However, in the blink of an eye, she used her shocking reaction speed and mental game to regain the initiative and escape towards the cave entrance. Su Zimo stared at Tang Zi's back, and his eyes shone brightly. His figure flickered again and disappeared on the spot. Third flash. After cultivating for more than 1,000 years in the mine outside Luguang City, other than improving his cultivation, he had also raised the True Dragon's 9 flashes to the 3rd level, and could flash 3 times consecutively. Ever since Su Zimo started cultivating this secret technique, it was extremely rare for someone of the same level to force him to use the 2nd level. Not to mention, he had to flash 3 times consecutively to deal with one person. In the current situation, even if Su Zimo used the innate ability of the golden-winged Great Rock, he would not be able to suppress Tang Zi before she left the cave. If he let Tang Zi leave the cave, even if Su Zimo could chase after her, it would go against his original intention to do so under the surveillance of outsiders. Su Zimo had no choice but to activate the True Dragon's 9 flashes again and descend in front of Tang Zi. The moment he attacked, he used the Great Chaos Essence Palm. This seemingly white and delicate palm seemed to transform into a gigantic millstone and burst forth with an extremely terrifying crushing and twisting power. The entire cave became suffocating. However, Tang Zi's figure did not have any intention of stopping. Her cold face was still expressionless, and her eyes were frighteningly calm. Su Zimo could not help but exclaim in his heart. Such a strong temperament and willpower was indeed extraordinary. This Tang Zi was the most terrifying assassin he had encountered in his cultivation so far. There was no one else. Suddenly, Tang Zi stretched out both hands and blocked Su Zimo's Great Chaos Essence Palm. Her palms flipped slightly, and the movement was so subtle that it was almost undetectable. However, the moment Tang Zi's palms were about to collide with the Great Chaos Essence Palm, a dark dagger appeared in each of her hands. The 2 daggers did not emit any light and blended perfectly into the darkness. What was even more frightening was that neither Tang Zi herself nor the 2 daggers revealed any killing intent. It meant that if Su Zimo did not have spiritual senses, he would not even be able to sense the attack that was close to him after he closed his eyes. For an assassin to be able to cultivate to such a level, it was simply too terrifying. Not to mention, this was the first time Tang Zi had seen the 9 flashes of the True Dragon. She had already been caught off guard and lost the initiative. But in the blink of an eye, not only did this person avoid Su Zimo's 3 flashes, but he also quickly calmed down and launched a counterattack. His first move was such a fierce killing move. Su Zimo was amazed by such a strong temperament, such combat talent, and such adaptability. After ascending to the upper realm, this was the first person who made him feel threatened by someone of the same level as him. Normally speaking, with the current strength and toughness of Qinglian's true body, it was sufficient to go head-on against any natural profound rank magic treasure. However, Su Zimo did not dare to be careless against this terrifying assassin and the daggers in her hands. At that moment, it was already too late for him to summon the Hell Suppression Cauldron. Su Zimo changed his move at the last minute and dissipated the force of the Great Chaos Essence Palm. His arms were like the trunks of divine elephants, and his palms seemed weak as he placed them on the dark dual daggers before exerting strength. It was a strength technique from the mystic classic of the 12 demon kings of the Great Wilderness. Tang Zi felt a spinning, twisting, and vibrating power. Her hands could not hold on to the dark dual daggers, and they were about to fly out of her hands. Even so, her eyes were still as calm as an ancient well. All of a sudden, Tang Zi opened her mouth slightly. Between her lips, an extremely ear-piercing sound suddenly erupted. It was like a sharp dagger that wanted to pierce through one's eardrums. It was a sound domain attack. The moment Tang Zi opened her mouth, Su Zimo had already sensed it and opened his mouth at the same time. A loud dragon roar burst forth from the depths of his throat. Roar! This voice was terrifying, dignified, and horrifying. It contained a supreme will that stood above all living beings in the world. The entire cave trembled as a result. Dragon Roar secret skill. Without her Dragon Phoenix true body, it was difficult for Qinglian's true body to release a powerful sound domain secret skill, like the roar of the Dragon Phoenix. However, in Dragon Lake City, he had once made use of an Azure Dragon corpse to fight against various perfected immortals, and comprehended the technique of the Azure Dragon's roar. Thereafter, he fused the roars of the Azure Dragon and Dragon Phoenix together with the Thunderclap kill that he had once cultivated to create a Dragon Roar secret skill that was suitable for Qinglian's true body. When that secret skill was released, it was even stronger and scarier than the roar of the Azure Dragon and Dragon Phoenix alone. The Dragon Roar secret skill was released and suppressed Tang Zi's sound domain secret skill with ease, shattering it into pieces. The two of them were extremely close. At this distance, Tang Zi suffered the most impact. Tang Zi shuddered slightly and was slightly dazed. The power in her palms dissipated slightly as well. Right then, Su Zimo channeled strength in his palms and snatched the two black daggers. Crossing his hands, he placed them on Tang Zi's neck. At the same time, Tang Zi had also recovered from Su Zimo's Dragon Roar secret skill. Unfortunately, it was too late. With two daggers at her neck, she knew very well that although the green-robed cultivator before her looked frail, he was definitely someone who was decisive and killing. If she made any sudden movements, blood would definitely splatter on the spot. Although the entire process seemed slow, it took less than 2 to 3 breaths. The two of them exchanged blows, tested each other, and fought for a few rounds. Both of them had the upper hand, and even used sound domain secret skills. In the end, Su Zimo came out on top. Everything was settled. Su Zimo looked at the woman before him and heaved a sigh of relief. Although it was a short exchange, this female assassin had refreshed his understanding of her. She was even more troublesome than he had imagined. At such a close distance, his Dragon Roar secret skill could even kill cultivators of the same cultivation realm right away. As for the female assassin, she recovered in the blink of an eye. However, her face was slightly pale. Without a strong physique and bloodline, there was no way one could withstand his Dragon Roar secret skill. Given this woman's physique, even if she did not use any assassination methods, not many mystic immortals would be able to defend against her head-on. Even though she was already in Su Zimo's hands and her life was no longer in her control, Tang Zi's expression did not change at all, and her gaze was calm. It was only at this moment that Su Zimo felt a sharp pain in his palm. Blood flowed down his palm slowly. What sharp daggers? Su Zimo was secretly shocked. Just now, he used a technique from the mystic classic of the 12 demon kings of the Great Wilderness to grab the black daggers, but he was still injured by them. He could imagine that if he had not changed his move, his palm would have been pierced by the black daggers with ease. Su Zimo's gaze flickered. A thin wound had already appeared on Tang Zi's neck and fresh blood flowed down her snow-white skin slowly. He did not use any strength at all, but the black daggers had already cut Tang Zi's neck. However, Tang Zi was still expressionless, as though she could not feel it. It was as though nothing in this world could move her. In fact, it was even life and death. Chapter 1936. The City Lord's Mansion. Just now the cave seems to be shaking? True Immortal Mirror Moon frowned slightly, not daring to confirm. Just now, it was shaking because of Su Zimo's Dragon Roar secret technique. Although the exalted immortals of the City Lord's Mansion could see what was happening inside the 10 Extremities prison, they could not hear anything from inside. True Immortal Mirror Moon also did not know that in this short period of time, the two people in the cave had already fought, and the result had been decided. Duke Yuanzhua waved his hand and said dispiritedly, "Keep an eye on it. I'll go check on the others. Let me know if there's anything." Since he could not see what was happening inside the cave, it was naturally boring to just stare at the cave entrance. 10 Extremities prison. Su Zimo held the dual dark daggers with both hands and placed them on Tang Zi's neck. He did not withdraw them. He knew very well what this female assassin was capable of. If he let his guard down even for a moment, he might be attacked by this woman. "Why are you looking for me?" Su Zimo asked. Tang Zi was expressionless and did not say a word. Su Zimo suddenly smiled. Judging from this female assassin's posture, she did not intend to speak at all. Even with the daggers on her neck, she was not afraid at all. She did not even look at him. "How about this?" Su Zimo said in a low voice. "Let's make a deal. I can let you go, but you have to answer my questions." Tang Zi seemed to be a little tempted. She glanced at Su Zimo, but still did not say a word. Su Zimo smiled and said, "Of course, if it involves any secrets that you can't speak of, you can choose not to. Also, if I promise to let you go, I will not go back on my words." After that, Su Zimo put away the dual dark daggers and took a few steps back to show his sincerity. This time, Tang Zi's heart surged with a trace of surprise. However, her expression was still very calm. No one could see the change in her heart. The reason why she noticed Su Zimo was firstly because she could not see through him. To her, this was a variable. She had another purpose for coming here this time, so she did not want this variable to affect her plan. Secondly, she had followed him all the way and was increasingly curious about Su Zimo. Apart from her, all the Xian immortals who entered the 10 Extremities prison had the same goal, which was to kill as many people as possible and squeeze into the hunting list. As for this person, he wandered around the entire day, not killing a single person. The strangest thing was that this person seemed to be intentionally avoiding other people. He could even sense danger in advance and avoid the habitats of some earth demons. If it was outside, Tang Zi would have enough patience to follow Su Zimo, even if it was for a year or 10 years. She had once tried to assassinate an earth immortal. In order to ensure that nothing went wrong, she had waited patiently for hundreds of years before making her move. It was a one-hit kill. If she didn't have such a temperament, she wouldn't have grown to where she was today. However, in the 10 Extremes prison, she did not have the time to observe the man's habits, cultivation, strength, and methods. She had more important things to do. And the simplest way was to kill this variable. That was why the confrontation in the cave just now happened. But this time, Tang Zi had suffered quite a bit of damage. She had never been defeated by someone of the same level since she started cultivating. Even in a head-on confrontation, no one was a match for her. If she used her various assassination methods and secret techniques, she could even kill an earth immortal. However, this time, in the 10 Extremes prison, a seemingly weak scholar had subdued her in just a few breaths' time. Who was this person? What was the movement technique that this person used that was close to teleportation? Why was this person's sound domain secret technique so similar to a dragon's roar? How could it unleash such terrifying power and will? What kind of body and bloodline does this person have? How could he subdue me? In fact, Tang Zi was even more confused. She just didn't show it. Now, after hearing Su Zimo's suggestion, Tang Zi was tempted, but she remained calm and said, "I also want to ask you some questions. Of course, if it's related to secrets, you can choose not to tell me." "Okay." Su Zimo nodded. "Why didn't you fight anyone when you entered the 10 Extremities prison?" Tang Zi asked before Su Zimo could ask. She thought that with Su Zimo's abilities, it wouldn't be difficult for him to enter the hunting list, or even the top 10. We're all people who ascended from the lower worlds. We don't have any deep grudges against each other, so I didn't want to fight. Su Zimo paused and said, "Besides, it wasn't my own intention to enter the 10 Extremities prison. I was chosen and brought here." Tang Zi shook her head and said, "Everyone has no choice in the 10 Extremities prison. It's impossible for you to stay out of it." "Maybe," Su Zimo said calmly, "but I don't want to be manipulated by others." Back then, he started cultivating to change his fate. Later, because of Su Hong's death, the people of the Yin Kingdom lost their homes and became homeless. He even swore to change the fate of the world. He wanted to control his own fate. He wouldn't be manipulated, or even toyed with by others. After Su Zimo entered the 10 Extremities prison, he had been looking for a chance to break free from the invisible chains on him. He seemed to be running around randomly, but his real goal was to explore the environment, terrain, and even the secrets of the prison. This Thunder City and the 10 Extremities prison were strange. There might be some secrets hidden here. I don't want to be manipulated by others. Tang Zi murmured and looked at Su Zimo deeply. Over the years, countless mystic immortals from the lower worlds had entered the 10 Extremities prison, but none of them could say that. Perhaps some resisted, or perhaps some were unwilling, but in the end, they didn't leave any traces. Tang Zi said, "Even if you don't want to, it won't change anything. If you want to leave the 10 Extremities prison alive, the only way is to kill your way into the hunting list. There's no other way." Su Zimo suddenly asked, "What happens to the cultivators who survive to the end, but don't make it into the hunting list?" "Death," Tang Zi said. "There are many earth demons in the 10 Extremities prison. Because of the isolation of essence qi, they can't cultivate, so they usually hibernate. And now 100,000 mystic immortals have entered. They've been alerted. When all the earth demons in the 10 Extremities prison wake up, none of the remaining mystic immortals will survive." Su Zimo's expression was cold. He didn't ask, but he could guess that the earth demons must have been deliberately left behind by the exalted immortals outside. It wasn't enough to let 100,000 mystic immortals kill each other. They had to face the danger of being hunted down and devoured by the earth demons at any time. "What's with that eye in the sky?" Su Zimo asked again. "That's the Mirage Eye," Tang Zi said. "There's a Mirage mirror in the City Lord's mansion outside. Through the Mirage Eye, it shows everything in the 10 Extremities prison for the City Lords and exalted immortals to see." This wasn't a secret, so Tang Zi didn't hide it and told him the truth. The Book Guest House Reading website. Chapter 1937. Admire? Watch. Hee. Su Zimo grinned. His face darkened, and his eyes turned cold. These exalted immortals could easily gather them and put them in a space like a herd of livestock. They could kill as they pleased. This was not a hunting party, nor was it a fair opportunity. This was a hunting game prepared by the exalted immortals. The Xian immortals in the 10 Extremities prison were only the prey of the exalted immortals. The real hunters were the City Lords and exalted immortals outside. Su Zimo believed that even if the 100 Xian immortals on the hunting list could leave the 10 Extremities prison alive, they would not be able to make a name for themselves. In the dark cave, Tang Zi saw Su Zimo's smile. Her heart skipped a beat, and she shuddered. Just now she was not afraid, even if her life was hanging by a thread. But at this moment, she suddenly felt that Su Zimo's eyes were a little scary. "How often is this hunting party held?" Su Zimo asked. Tang Zi said, "Normally, it's held once every 10,000 years. But only a few thousand years have passed since the last hunting party. I don't know why it was brought forward." Su Zimo thought for a moment, and suddenly asked, "Is there any other purpose for this hunting party other than for the exalted immortals to enjoy?" Tang Zi's expression changed slightly, but she did not answer. Su Zimo realized that this might be some secret. Even if he asked, he would not get any answers. Su Zimo changed the topic. "I walked around the 10 Extremities prison, and I found a large area in the center of the prison. It's a little strange. There are no living creatures around. Even the earth demons in the prison are avoiding it. What's going on there?" That area was more like a forbidden area. Su Zimo could feel a strong sense of danger. It was even more dangerous than the earth demons. So he only looked from afar, and did not get close. That's the center of the 10 Extremities prison. It's also the forbidden area. Tang Zi said. In that area, there are 10 world-shaking immortal formations that seal off the sky and the land. Among them, the Howling Wind Formation, the Freezing Ice Formation, the Golden Light Formation, the Blood Transformation Formation, the Raging Flame Formation, the Desolation Formation, the Flood Formation, and the Red Veil Formation. 8 immortal formations are located in 8 directions, sealing off the surroundings. Finally, the Heaven Annihilation Formation and the Earth Scorching Formation sealed the 2 exits of heaven and earth, forming a prison that sealed the heaven and earth. No one could enter, and no one could come out. Not to mention earth demons. Even if a heavenly demon were to barge into the formation, they would not last more than a few breaths before their souls would scatter, and their Tao would vanish. The meaning of the 10 extremes is to sever all paths of life, and there is no chance of survival. Su Zimo was shocked when he heard that. It turned out that the 10 extremes prison came about because of these 10 formations. Sealing heaven and earth certain death. This 10 extremes formation is too vicious. Just who is it suppressing? Su Zimo asked in a deep voice. Tang Zi did not speak. Just when Su Zimo thought that Tang Zi would not speak, she suddenly said, about a few 100,000 years ago, a person ascended from the lower world. This person's talent was unparalleled in the world. Although he was from the lower world, it only took him 2,000 years to break through and become an Earth Immortal. He was ranked first on the Earth roll. 6,000 years later, he became a Heaven Immortal, and became one of the youngest Heaven Immortals in the Divine Firmament Celestial Realm. Then, during the Divine Firmament Immortal Gathering, he won the first place on the Heaven roll, and became the first Heaven Immortal in the Divine Firmament Celestial Realm. He became famous. Although Su Zimo did not know what the Heaven roll and Earth roll were, he was fascinated by the story. As a person from the lower world, if he wanted to cultivate in the upper world and reach this level, he must have gone through many dangers and difficulties. It was not easy for this person to achieve such achievements. Tang Zi continued. If he can become the first place on the Heaven and Earth rolls, he will be able to become a true immortal. This person was also highly regarded by the Divine Firmament Celestial Emperor, and was accepted as a true disciple. This person was from the lower world, but he was accepted as a disciple by the Divine Firmament Celestial Emperor. This showed how powerful he was. Tang Zi paused for a while and said, during the meeting of the Divine Firmament Celestial Realm, this person defeated all the geniuses from the other celestial realms. He was invincible among perfected immortals, and took the first place on the true immortal roll. He was given the title of Peerless Immortal. Peerless Immortal was the highest. There was no one else above him. He was the Peerless Immortal. Even though Tang Zi described it calmly, and without any fluctuations in her emotions, this experience still made one's blood boil and scalp tingle. Could it be that the Peerless Immortal is imprisoned in the 10 Extreme Prison? Su Zimo could not help but ask. Tang Zi did not say a word. It was a silent admission. Su Zimo shook his head slightly. It was hard to imagine how such a genius could fall from the altar and end up like this. How could this be? Su Zimo frowned and asked. Tang Zi said, this Peerless Immortal was born in the lower world, so he had a fierce conflict with the native exalted immortals in the upper world. This Peerless Immortal thought that the creatures in the lower world and the upper world should be treated equally in the Divine Firmament Celestial Realm. He wanted to give the creatures in the lower world enough cultivation resources, so that those who ascended from the lower world could have a relatively fair chance. He made the decision to popularize the Soul Condensing Pill and the Greater Soul Condensing Pill. He wanted to build a celestial kingdom where the creatures in the lower world could cultivate and live without being oppressed by other exalted immortals. When he heard that, Su Zimo's heart was filled with respect. If it was just the title of Peerless Immortal, it was nothing. However, it was rare to have such a broad mind and magnanimity. Tang Zi continued. Back then, the Dajin celestial kingdom did not exist, and there were no celestial kings ruling this land. Several celestial kings, under the 9 heavens immortal emperor, competed for the title of king here. In the end, only 2 people were left. Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat, and he said, "The current Dajin celestial king is one of them." Tang Zi nodded and said, "The other one is this peerless immortal. However, he hadn't become a celestial king yet. He was qualified because everyone knew that with his talent, once he became a celestial king, he would definitely be a top celestial king. This peerless immortal wanted to build his own celestial kingdom to protect the creatures in the lower world. Therefore, he forcefully broke through and wanted to become a celestial king as soon as possible so that he could compete with King Jin. Something happened during this period. Su Zimo narrowed his eyes slightly. Tang Zi said, "At a critical juncture of his secluded cultivation, he was plotted against and failed to break through." Su Zimo opened his mouth slightly, stunned on the spot. It was a short sentence, but behind it was endless sadness, helplessness, despair, and unwillingness. There was also an unimaginable bloody storm. King Jin did it. A cold light flashed in Su Zimo's eyes. In the end, the biggest beneficiary of this matter was the current Dajin celestial king. The most likely possibility was that the Dajin celestial king felt threatened, so he killed this threat in advance. "It wasn't King Jin who did it," Tang Zi said. "The person who did it has a status in the Dajin celestial kingdom. He's only second to one person, and above everyone else. This person is the Heavenly Execution King, who single-handedly created the Executioner Guards. Eternal Sacred King, Eternal Sacred King." Chapter 1938. The Heavenly Punishment Monarch. Su Zimo sneered. The ultimate beneficiary of this matter was Monarch Jin. The Heavenly Punishment Monarch didn't receive any punishment for plotting against the person in prison. Instead, he was highly regarded by Monarch Jin. It would be difficult for Monarch Jin to clear his name. Now that he heard such a shocking secret, Su Zimo was shocked and confused. Is the 10-terminal formation really so powerful that it can trap a true immortal? Su Zimo frowned and asked. Even if this expert was plotted against and failed to break through, he's still a true immortal. As long as his cultivation is still there, and his Tao isn't destroyed. At this point, Su Zimo's expression changed as if he realized something and couldn't continue. Tang Zi nodded and said, "You guessed right. When this person was breaking through, he was plotted against by the Heavenly Punishment Monarch and was severely injured. The Heavenly Punishment Monarch was worried that this person would seek revenge after recovering from his injuries. So he shattered this person's Tao fruit." Su Zimo was shocked. He had already come into contact with Tao fruits in the lower world through Dayu. Su Zimo didn't know much about Tao fruits. He only knew that this Tao fruit was the foundation and essence of a true immortal. The shattering of the Tao fruit meant that one's Tao was destroyed. There was no possibility of cultivating again in the future. This was too great a blow to a cultivator. It was considered a good ending if one couldn't recover from the setback and became mediocre. If one's Tao heart collapsed and their nascent spirit weakened, they wouldn't be able to live for long. "How long has the senior been imprisoned?" Su Zimo asked. "A few 100,000 years, Tang Zi said. Tang Zi said indifferently, "This city and the 10 Extremes prison were all built for him." A thought flashed through Su Zimo's mind. However, just now, the news he heard was too shocking, so he didn't think too much about it. A few 100,000 years. After being imprisoned here and losing his Tao fruit, this person is probably long dead. Su Zimo shook his head slightly. After being imprisoned for hundreds of thousands of years, even a normal person wouldn't be able to withstand such a blow, let alone losing his Tao fruit. His future was dark, and he was surrounded by boundless loneliness and humiliation at all times. This pain was unimaginable. "Perhaps," Tang Zi replied calmly. Su Zimo said angrily, "The Heavenly Punishment Monarch has already crippled this person's Tao fruit and imprisoned him here, never to be free. He's too vicious." Tang Zi didn't say anything, but in the depths of her eyes, there was a trace of sadness that was hard to detect, but it quickly disappeared. Su Zimo suddenly thought of the answer to a question. That was the question he had asked Tang Zi earlier. But she didn't answer. The gathering of the hunt had been held for so many years. Other than providing entertainment for the exalted immortals outside, what other purpose was there? When he found out about this secret from hundreds of thousands of years ago, Su Zimo realized that there was an even more important purpose to this hunt. It was to humiliate the peerless true immortal and destroy his Dao heart. Since you want to establish an immortal kingdom to protect the people of the lower realms, I'll let you witness the people of the lower realms killing one another in the 10 Extremities prison. I'll let you witness how the people of the lower realms are like animals in captivity. Their fates are at our mercy, and you can't do anything about it. I'll let you suffer the torture in your heart for the rest of your life. I'll let your beliefs and Dao heart crumble. The 10 Extremities formation wasn't the only thing imprisoning the peerless true immortal, but also the blood and corpses of the cultivators of the lower realms that had died here over the past hundreds of thousands of years. It was 10,000 times more vicious than killing someone or imprisoning them for hundreds of thousands of years. Just the thought of it was enough to send chills down his spine. Tang Zi said, "As a matter of fact, Thunder City, the 10 Extremities prison, and the hunt all have their own reasons. It's to intimidate all the cultivators of the lower realms. If anyone has the same idea and wants to establish an immortal kingdom for the people of the lower realms, they'll end up like the peerless true immortal. The Heavenly Punishment King is telling the world that anyone who follows the peerless true immortal's footsteps will die." Tang Zi said, "The facts prove that the Heavenly Punishment King succeeded. For hundreds of thousands of years, no one in the Divine Clouds continent has dared to speak up for the people of the lower realms. When the peerless true immortal failed, the path was cut off." Su Zimo suddenly said, "The path is not cut off." "Oh." Tang Zi glanced at him. Su Zimo said slowly, "I'll continue on this path. Even if the path is cut off, I can continue it. If you can't continue it, the path ahead is cut off. If you take half a step forward, you'll fall into a bottomless abyss." Tang Zi shook her head. Su Zimo said, "Even if the path ahead is a bottomless abyss, I'm fearless. Even if I fall to my death, I'll have no regrets." Tang Zi's heart skipped a beat as she looked at Su Zimo in disbelief. At that moment, Su Zimo's tone was firm, and his gaze was resolute. The brilliance in his eyes seemed to be brighter than the stars and brighter than the sun and moon. Su Zimo felt an intense sense of injustice. Back then, when he was in Tianhuang mainland, he saw that the people of the world could not cultivate and were bullied by cultivators and slaughtered by demons. That was the reason why he felt so indignant. At that time, he made a huge vow to establish the Wu Dao and bring prosperity to the people. This time, Su Zimo wanted to change the fates of the people of the lower realms. That was because he came from the lower realms. Monkey Linghu Qing Qing, Night Spirit Little Fox, and the Golden Lion were his brothers who came from the lower realms as well. Kitsune and Carefree were his two disciples who came from the lower realms as well. All of his old friends ascended from the lower realms. He could empathize with the bullying, injustice, and suffering of the living beings of the lower realms. After hearing about the experiences of this supreme perfected immortal, the sense of injustice surged in Su Zimo's chest and could no longer be suppressed. "If there's injustice in my heart, I'll get rid of it. I'm Araki Takashi from the lower realms. I'll create a pure land for the living beings of the lower realms." Su Zimo gripped his fists and said slowly, "In the future, I'll let all living beings of the upper realms know the name of Araki Takashi." "Why you?" Tang Zi was indignant and wanted to say something to deal a blow to Su Zimo. However, at that moment, Su Zimo's heroic spirit gave her a strange and indescribable feeling. For a moment, she froze on the spot and merely looked at Su Zimo in a daze. After a moment, she seemed to have realized something and turned around hurriedly, whispering, "You're far from it." Su Zimo knew in his heart that the path to the upper realm would be even more difficult and dangerous. This person in prison was once so talented. However, in the end, he was reduced to such an outcome where he was better off dead. As Tang Zi said, he was far from it. In the cave there was a long silence. Su Zimo and Tang Zi stood opposite each other. However, both of them had their own thoughts and neither of them spoke. Sigh. Right then Su Zimo suddenly heard a sigh. The sigh was ancient and distant, as if it had descended from the long river of time. It carried a deep emotion that moved one. Chapter 1939. The sigh was extremely sudden in the quiet cave. Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat. He tensed up and was on guard. The sigh was clearly from a man and not Tang Zi. Could it be that there was someone else in the cave? He and Tang Zi had conversed in the cave for so long, but they did not discover the existence of this person? Su Zimo looked at Tang Zi. The latter's expression was calm without any abnormalities, as though she did not hear the sigh at all. Su Zimo spread out his spirit consciousness and searched the cave carefully, but to no avail. The sigh did not seem to have come from the cave. It sounded more like it was in his mind. Stop searching. I'm not there. The old and mysterious voice sounded in Su Zimo's mind again. Who are you? Su Zimo did not speak, and merely asked with his spirit consciousness. Who am I? Who am I? The mysterious person murmured softly but did not answer. He merely sighed emotionally. After so many years, I didn't expect to see someone from Tianhuang mainland here. Su Zimo was shocked. He had ascended to the upper world for more than 1,000 years, and had never mentioned which small world he came from or Tianhuang mainland to anyone. And this mysterious person actually exposed his origin with a single sentence. You. Instantly, countless questions surged in Su Zimo's mind. He could not react in time, and did not know where to start. You don't have to be nervous, the mysterious person said. I can recognize your background, because I'm also from Tianhuang mainland. Su Zimo was dumbfounded. He did not expect to meet someone from Tianhuang mainland here. Furthermore, this mysterious person's methods seemed to have far surpassed the scope of a mystic immortal. There was a high chance that he was a senior from Tianhuang mainland who ascended before him. Of course, even so, Su Zimo was still extremely cautious and did not believe him easily. Even if you're from Tianhuang mainland, how did you recognize that I'm from Tianhuang mainland? Su Zimo asked. The mysterious man said, just now you are using the Great Chaos Palm. It was created by the primitive emperor. He has his own legacy sect in Tianhuang called the Hunyuan sect. I wonder if it's still around. Upon hearing this, Su Zimo no longer had any doubts in his heart. To be able to accurately recount these old stories, they must be from Heaven Wasteland. At this moment, the mysterious man continued. Just now, I sensed a familiar aura from the sound domain secret technique you used. You should have cultivated a cultivation technique, the Void Thunder technique. Su Zimo was even more surprised. His Dragon Roar secret art had indeed incorporated some of the profound mysteries of the Thunderclap kill. Who would have thought that this mysterious person would be able to deduce the cultivation method he was cultivating with just a secret technique? While Su Zimo was immersed in his astonishment, the mysterious man continued. This Void Thunder technique is the succession I left behind in Tianhuang before I ascended. Ah! Su Zimo's expression changed starkly as he bolted upright and exclaimed in a hoarse voice. You are! Sensing Su Zimo's strange movements, Tang Zi was a little nervous as well. Retreating to distance herself, she glared at Su Zimo fixedly and asked, What are you doing? Realizing that he had lost his composure, Su Zimo hurriedly took a deep breath to compose himself. He could not be blamed for that. Just now's words were truly too shocking for him. He had not expected to meet someone from Tianhuang mainland here. More than that, he did not expect that this person from Tianhuang mainland was from the same era as the eternal human emperor, the legendary Thunder Emperor, who had ascended to the upper world a long time ago. Suddenly, Su Zimo thought of a possibility and asked Tang Zi, Is the person trapped in the 10-terminal formation proficient in thunder techniques? That's right. Tang Zi replied. At this moment, many things became clearer before Su Zimo's eyes. Just now, the person in prison that Tang Zi was referring to, the supreme perfected immortal, was the Thunder Emperor of Tianhuang mainland. The reason why the so-called Thunder Extreme City severed the power of thunder was to suppress the Thunder Emperor as well. With a stern expression, Su Zimo bowed deeply in the direction of the 10-terminal formation. "What are you doing?" Tang Zi asked in confusion when she saw Su Zimo's strange behavior. Su Zimo did not explain. His bow was not only because he cultivated the Void Thunder Manual, or because the Thunder Emperor once fought for the human race in the ancient era of Tianhuang mainland. It was also because of the Thunder Emperor's actions in the upper world, and his magnanimity and boldness. "Just now you can say those words." "Very good," as expected of someone from Tianhuang mainland. The Thunder Emperor's voice sounded in Su Zimo's mind. "However, it's best that you don't continue down this path. This path is way too difficult. Throughout history, countless living beings of the lower world have tried, but all of them ended in failure. In fact, many of them disappeared in the long river of time without leaving a single trace." Su Zimo was silent. He understood that the Thunder Emperor's advice was out of goodwill. No one knew the difficulty of this path better than the Thunder Emperor. That was the reason why he could say those words. The Thunder Emperor could tell that Su Zimo was a rare genius. However, he had roamed the upper world for many years and had seen all sorts of geniuses. The reason why he advised Su Zimo to turn back and not step onto this path was because he did not want to see this person from Tianhuang mainland die on this path, filled with corpses, due to a moment of passion. However, Su Zimo had heard of the Thunder Emperor's name, but the Thunder Emperor did not know about Su Zimo. He did not know Su Zimo, nor did he know about Su Zimo's temperament. He also did not know that Su Zimo had once established the Wu Dao in the lower world and brought prosperity to the people. He was known as the Eternal Wu Huang, and his achievements had even surpassed the human emperor. Su Zimo did not explain. The Thunder Emperor continued. "Other than me, there was also Lin Zhan who ascended from Tianhuang mainland. He ascended to the Qingxiao celestial realm and became a celestial king before me. He was highly regarded by the Qingxiao celestial emperor and was given the title of Battle King. All these years, I have been imprisoned here and have no news of him. However, I believe that with his strength, he will definitely be able to conquer the Qingxiao celestial realm and establish a celestial kingdom. Although Brother Lin and I are not in the same celestial realm, we have the same ideals and beliefs. If you leave this place and have the chance to go to the Qingxiao celestial realm, you might as well look for him. If he knows that you are from Tianhuang mainland, he will definitely be extremely happy." At this point, the Thunder Emperor paused for a moment and said, "By the way, you might not know who Lin Zhan is, but you definitely know his name in Tianhuang mainland. The Eternal Human Emperor is him." Ah, Su Zimo was shocked. This was the first time he knew the name of the Eternal Human Emperor. Since he ascended to the upper world, this was also the first time he knew some information about the Eternal Human Emperor. Su Zimo muttered softly in his heart, "I wonder how Senior Human Emperor is now. What happened?" The Thunder Emperor understood the meaning behind Su Zimo's words and asked. Su Zimo did not hide anything, and simply recounted the battle at the Enigma Palace, and the Eternal Human Emperors returned to Tianhuang mainland. At that time, although the Eternal Human Emperor had returned to the upper world, he was clearly severely injured. It's too dangerous to break the realm barrier and forcefully descend to the lower world, the Thunder Emperor said. If it's light, one's cultivation will be destroyed. If it's serious, one might even die. It's a pity that I am trapped here and can't help much. 2K Reading Network. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support. And don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.